Swing and a drive. That ball is launched deep toward left, and that is high off the facade of the standing deck above the bullpen. Ivan Herrera with a long homer has made it a one-run game.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's 11:02. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Alex is not prepared for the show, and I don't mean that as a slight. We're just on early. We're on about 3 minutes earlier than we're typically ready for. So if you hear anything in the first segment, you're like, whoa, what's going on, boys?
You might be the king of throwing teammates under the bus. You know that? You
Take the credit, pass the blame.
You might be the star in that conversation, which I know that's what gets your jollies all riled up when you hear the star.
We did buy him a conductor hat.
That's true. That's true.
The captain of this ship, for better or for worse.
How'd that go for Captain Phillips?
Somebody else took over.
I meant the guy that said, I'm the captain now.
Oh.
Yeah, he wasn't the captain. Captain Phillips won. The real captain.
The best part of this is that you started out by saying, well, how'd that go for Captain Phillips? The answer's pretty well.
I meant, how did that go in Captain Phillips for the guy that said, I'm the captain now?
All right, so the Cardinals back in action.
Apparently not. Go home today.
They've got a doubleheader today. They've played so many doubleheaders that Major League Baseball had to go to the team and say, hey, how would you like to do this? Would you rather this be a split doubleheader with the day and night game, or do you want them back-to-back? And the Cardinals said, please get us out of Chicago. We would love to go back home. So they're going to be playing a back-to-back doubleheader today, 1 o'clock and then 4:30. Alex, the lineup to me is really interesting. And this has become something that is getting more and more traction in recent days because Nootbaar's going through it right now. Jordan Walker came back from the IL and has suddenly become, it appears, a platoon player for the Cardinals again, or something resembling a platoon player for the Cardinals. Alec Burleson's hitting it so well that you need him in the lineup every day. Nolan Gorman is hitting it so well that you'd like to see him in the lineup every day. I heard Jamie Rivers go absolutely ballistic on Ollie Marmol 2 days ago because Gorman wasn't in the lineup after having a really good game. This is where they're at. They've got a roster crunch. They've got a lineup crunch right now. So with the doubleheader, you're going to get a lot of guys opportunities. It also means you're going to use multiple catchers today. And that allows for them to get what is, I mean, as close as you can get, basically, to your best lineup for game one today. Here's how they're going. We're not going to play the lineup game, but this is what it looks like for game one.
Because I wasn't prepared and I didn't see this.
Leadoff hitter is Mason Wynn today. Shortstop. Batting second, Ivan Herrera. Behind the plate at catcher. Third is Alec Burleson, DH. Batting cleanup today is Wilson Contreras at first as usual. Batting fifth in your lineup today is Nolan Gorman at second base. And then you've got sixth, Nolan Arenado. Seventh, Lars Nootbaar in left. Eighth, Jordan Walker in right. And ninth, Victor Scott in center. So the only guy that you would really argue for to be in this lineup that's not in there is Brendan Donovan. This is pretty easy to explain. He's got the toe thing, got the turf toe. And he's not going to play back-to-back games over the course of 6 hours, right? That doesn't make any sense. The thing that makes this possible is Ivan Herrera behind the plate, Alex. And that's what I'm going to be curious about. This is the first time that Ivan Herrera has caught a game that Eric Fedde has started since his second start of the season. You probably remember that one. It was on the road at Fenway Park. It was a disaster, and he hasn't caught him ever since.
That was the 16-run game, wasn't it? Or was that the Michaelis one?
I think that was the 16-run game, but it was like 3 innings for him. I think 6 earned runs, something like that. It was a disaster.
All I know, there were
really
16
bad.
runs put up.
I think Graceffo came in after him, and I was like, oh, boy, this is going really poorly.
Never saw Graceffo again.
Do you think this is something we could see more of, Alex? Is Ivan Herrera going to get more of an opportunity behind the plate, or is this just a, hey, you know what, we've got a back-to-back doubleheader today, and we want Pedro Pais catching for Michael McGreevy?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I would be surprised if this is the start of seeing more Ivan Herrera. It makes sense if the Cardinals are leaning more in the direction of we need to see what all of these guys that we wanted to see get their consistent reps in. This is the only way you make it work. And even with this, with Herrera behind the plate, somebody is still going to be the odd man out when Brendan Donovan comes back. But I just don't buy into it. The way they've run this entire season, and it's not like all of a sudden they're out of the race and they're not a playoff contender anymore. This screams more like a doubleheader where you've just got no time off in between. You get Herrera here, he gets the DH a little bit later, and you move on from that one. But ideally for the Cardinals, it would be great if Herrera could start getting more reps back there, if the preparation and the approach and the play behind the plate could match what they want, because this is how we see Gorman, Arenado, or not Arenado, Gorman, Nootbaar, Walker, and Burleson on top when Donovan's healthy.
Yeah, I think this is just a classic case of, hey, it's a doubleheader, and we need to give Pages one game off, so we're going to put Herrera behind the plate. And it does allow us to open up playing time for most of the guys, at least for one of these games. I'll be curious to see what they decide to do in game number 2 when Donnie's in the lineup and Pages is behind the plate. I don't think this is going to be something moving forward because I think they value defense too much. And when they are in the midst of the playoff push right now, I think they're going to say, hey, our best, sure, we have a bunch of bats we'd like to get in the lineup. We are still going to stick with defense first over a bat. And I think they really made that change in 2023 when they went through that whole thing in the outfield where they couldn't catch a fly ball. So I think they're going to lean towards Pages still. And it really complicates things for Ollie because now you've basically got, 4 guys fighting for 2 spots if you keep Herrera DH and then Donnie at second base.
I don't know how you do this. Like, no matter what Ollie does, he will be called a bum by some portion of the fan base.
Maybe bum's a little too
I think that's what he'll be called, for better or for worse. Because if you sit Jordan Walker, you're a bum. You need that guy in the lineup. This is the runway season, right? How could it possibly be the runway season if Walker's not in there when he was the face of the entire retool? Well, you don't have Lars Nootbaar out there. All right, cool. The guy that's supposed to be your leadoff hitter, he goes through a bad 20-game slide, and now you're going to go ahead and bail on him in favor of what? Nolan Gorman, who's been good for 12? That's what we're doing here, Ollie? All right, you're a bum. Or you could go with Ivan Herrera behind the plate. That opens things up, right? Ollie, you're an idiot. He can't catch. He doesn't throw any runners out. He's terrible at game planning. Every time he goes out there, if it's Andre Palante, well, here comes a bad Andre Palante game. If it's Eric Fetty, we saw that at the beginning of the year. You remember what happened with the Red Sox? Bad game by him. Regardless of what the move is, he's going to be criticized by a certain segment of the fan base because each one of them, and some of them are fair criticisms, will say, well, Nolan Gorman's been good. Why isn't he in the lineup? Lars Nootbaar good up until the last 20 games. He's going to need to play in order to get out of the slump. Why isn't he in the lineup? Jordan Walker, face of the rebuild. Brendan Donovan, got to have him in the lineup every day, obviously. It's a Alec Burleson. Even against lefties, he's like 7 for his last 14 against left-handed pitchers now. So how do you keep him out of the lineup ever? Forget even against left-handed pitchers. It's tough. They're into a roster crunch right now, and I don't know what – this is terrible radio. I don't know what the right answer is. I don't know how you do this.
Yeah.
It might be pulling Nolan Arenado out of the lineup in a more consistent basis. How do you do that?
Yeah. Good luck with that conversation.
You can't do that one. That's going to put you in an even worse
spot. It came to hell or high water just to bump him down in the lineup. Now you want to pull him from the lineup? Good luck.
I mean, if you're getting frustrated with Ollie and the management of the lineup, I think the real frustration is directed towards the front office that all of these guys are still here.
But, don't you kind of want most of them here?
Sure, but you're not going to get to see all of them play. And you know what happens? They're not getting the runway, and then you sit there and you question, well, is this guy still good? And then you hold on to him too long. They tried to trade
Arenado, and he said no. I don't really know what more they could have done in the offseason.
I mean, this is a Gorman hot streak. Gorman should probably still be the odd man out. I think you're looking at the 2 lefties right now. You're looking at Gorman or Nootbaar, and you're saying which one of these are more crucial for our future.
But it has to be beyond that. It has to be potentially both of those guys and potentially Jordan Walker. Like, if you're only going to play one of Newt or Gorman, okay, cool.
But I think Walker has more runway. I think Walker has more runway than these guys.
He's not playing.
Well, no, I mean, like, in terms of what they want to see from him. Like, it's not like this is the make or break season for him. This might be make or break for Nolan Gorman. This might be make or break for Lars Nootbaar in terms of how they view him for this team. And you've already got a ton of left-handed bats, and it's pretty evident you got a lot of outfielders on this team. Donovan's soon to be an outfielder probably with what you've got in your pipeline. We're back to the same outfield conversation that we've had for the last 2 freaking years of, well, you've got all of these outfielders. It's time to make a decision. I'm not going to be mad at Ollie if this is the lineup construction. He's playing the guy that's got the hot hand. Even if Gorman comes out of this one, there is a little bit of runway that needs to be seen for Walker. And all of this is thrown a wrench in is because Burleson's hitting over 300 right now.
Like, some of these are good problems. Many of them are bad.
Absolutely. But
I think they've created a bad problem, which is weird to say.
I think the bigger issue here is we're still in the same conversation where we got 6 outfielders that you're trying to figure out who you need from.
Real quick, T-Bone from the 618. Guys, if you want to point out that Herrera can't throw anybody out, that's a fair criticism. I don't have a retort. But I am tired of hearing about how bad, here comes a bad game because Herrera's behind the plate. Bottom line is the pitcher controls that. Which pitcher you want to throw, end of story. Or, excuse me, The text says which picture you want to throw. Bottom line is the pitcher controls
threw the
what
texter under the
pitch
bus.
you want to throw. End of story. So this is a tough one for me because there is no way to value this with a specific metric, right? Game calling, the control of your starter, the control of your relievers, that is purely based upon what the information is that they have internally. We don't have any of that information externally. We don't know what it looks like pregame for them behind the scenes, and there is no metric for it. And if this fan base specifically is going to value what Yadier Molina did behind the plate, not just with throwing runners out, but also guiding guys through a game, that was a huge piece of the Yadier Molina mystique, right? It was nobody is better at game calling than that guy. He's a manager behind the plate, and it basically gives the Cardinals the ability to have like an extra player out there almost. Like any pitcher that you have, they are maximized because you've got Yadi. So if I'm going to value that, I also have to give a little bit of credence to the notion that, hey, when you don't have that, when you have the opposite of it, where a guy is just not great, maybe he gets there, but he's not great right now at game preparation, he's not a very good game caller, all of these different things, we also have to say, all right, well, I understand how you could get yourself to a place where you value that as the organization that propped up Yadier Molina for 20 years for all of those things. So I get it. I don't blame you. I understand that the bat plays, and he's a really good bat, Ivan Herrera is, and you want to see that behind the plate because it opens everything else up. The Cardinals value more than just that behind the plate. They have learned that in their Wilson Contreras experience, and they don't want to sign up for the Wilson Contreras experience all over again with Ivan Herrera. That's their perspective on it. I'm not telling you you have to like it, but that's their perspective on this.
I think the counter to that, and I'm not even necessarily fully disagreeing, I do think some of the whole game calling thing is a little overstated from the organization as a whole. But where's more runway being created this season for the bats or for the pitching? Because one of those runway pitchers, I would think, is McGreevy, and he's spending most of the year in AAA. And the thing that I would say is when you need answers on your bats, the best way to open up that playing time is for Ivan Herrera. I don't think it's about runway for Pedro Pages. I don't know if there's much more for Pages to prove to the organization. They already agree, hey, this guy's he's probably our best game caller behind the plate, our best defensive catcher. And, we don't really care about his offense because it is more about his defense for him as a player right now. I think if you're going to continue to talk about this season being about runway rather than the playoff push, and I think they would lean right now towards runway, then I think Herrera's the guy you got to put behind the plate.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I think they are trying to balance the two, and I think that's a great point to make. Maybe not. That's what we're trying to find out right now, correct? I think right now what they're running into is there has to be a balance of runway and trying to win. And they believe trying to win means Herrera doesn't get many opportunities behind the plate. The runway means he gets as many opportunities as possible behind the plate. So when you're balancing those two things, it's not easy. And you run into what we're talking about right now. This was always a likely destination for the Cardinals in 2025 if they did any amount of winning. And we're here. It took until, mid-June, but we're here. Because somebody went into a slump, Lars Nootbaar. Somebody else got hot, Nolan Gorman and Alec Burleson. And somebody went on the IL to allow for those opportunities for those guys, Jordan Walker. And now when all of those things come together and you've got a guy that's dealing with a little something in Brendan Donovan, so I'm guessing they don't love the idea of him playing in the outfield, you get into a roster crunch once again. And now you have to decide what is our best bet with Ivan Herrera. Is it behind the plate? Is it DH? What is it going to be? That's where they're at right now. And they have to make that decision every single day. Every single day. It's not an easy spot for Ollie Marmol. I don't envy his position.
No, I don't either. It sounds awful to say, but it might – I hate saying what I'm about. It might be the best thing for this team if they fall out of it.
Long term?
Yeah. Just so they could start getting some answers on these guys. If it opens it up where Herrera's playing more, because I agree, you can't play him back there if we're talking runway, because some of your pitchers, you need to have the best option back there in terms of Pages. But – I mean, if you're in the competitive window, and that's also great for this team so that they can understand what this competitive baseball feels like. But, man, it kind of feels like you're running before you're walking, of trying to compete and get on that competitive feeling if you don't even know what guys make out this roster when you're trying to still figure out who guys work best in your positions and in what positions.
Cardinals lineup is out today. Mason Wynn batting leadoff from there. Ivan Herrera behind the plate. Then Alec Burleson, who's going to be your DH today. Wilson Contreras is batting cleanup. Nolan Gorman, Nolan Arenado, Lars Nootbaar, Jordan Walker, Victor Scott. Eric Fetty will be on the mound. That's a 1:10 first pitch for the Cardinals up in Chicago against the White Sox. Brendan Donovan gets game one off. My assumption here, this is purely a guess, but I think it's probably fair. It's based on the toe. They don't want him playing back-to-back games. Get him back in the lineup later on this evening. Ivan Herrera behind the plate opens things up quite a bit for you, but it's a decision that they're going to have to make on a daily basis as to whether or not that's the way they want to go. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You can check us out on YouTube as well at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. No guests today, so plenty of room for us to stretch out here on BK and Ferrario. In 15 minutes, we're going to dive into some NFL quick hitters, including a signing that T-Bone wanted his team to make that has been made by another AFC threat. We'll talk about that in about 15 minutes. But next, we're starting to see where this market is coming in for the centers. And Alex, to say that he's not loving it would be putting it mildly. He'll tell you about that next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We're just having a really interesting conversation off air. I want to bring that on air, and then we'll get to the guy
who wasn't prepared.
The center market here in just a moment. Alex, you were talking about a piece that we saw earlier today over on The Athletic from James Myrtle. It was about how the Florida Panthers were constructed.
Yeah.
And it started making you think, like, okay, what does this mean not just for the Panthers, but for the NHL and how teams are built? Explain to the audience what you were just asking us.
So a couple of the lines that really caught me was, one, talking about how they didn't build this roster by overpaying for guys in free agency. They found the right guy on the right deal. But the one that really caught my attention was where he said the Panthers have built a culture to where guys are willing to play for less and stay with this roster. And guys like Brandon Montour, who 2 postseasons ago was one of the best players in the Stanley Cup final when the Panthers lost, the Panthers looked at that and said, you're not worth the money that you're asking for, so please go to market. We'll find somebody else to fill your spot. And my thought was, if the NHL is such a copycat league to where when one team does a certain thing in the playoffs or they play a certain style, everyone else is like, that's how you win a Stanley Cup. And I wonder if that leaks into the roster constructions to where the idea is putting together a roster and building a culture to where guys are willing to accept less to stay with a group that actually can win a Stanley Cup. And Florida has the makings. They did tank for a couple of years, and they got Barkov. They made the trades. They get the right coach. They find the right players, and then everything is wanting to be around Florida.
Yeah, in theory, it's...
No, you don't have the state income tax, so that's a big piece of it.
I was about to say, there's some context that's really important here that I don't think is easy to replicate.
Feels like Florida outside today.
Dude, you ain't lying. One, Barkov is the thing that makes all of this work.
Yeah.
First of all, he's an unbelievable captain. Did you see the Ring video, by the way, the Ring doorbell video?
That was incredible.
So Barkov was apparently just walking around his neighborhood with a couple of teammates, and they were just like going around with the Stanley Cup to everybody's door and then like ringing their doorbells, knocking on the door, and just trying to party with them, saying, we won the cup.
Get out into the street.
He also went back to the stadium, the arena, after they had won the cup in Edmonton, or later on that night, whatever it was. Yeah. And he's going
after the partying in the locker room in Florida, they went back out to the ice.
The arena is completely empty, right? And all that's up there is just employees. Employees with the team. There's probably like a couple hundred of them in the stands. And he's just like recreating the moment of hoisting the cup overhead is great. Anyway, so that's my sidebar on Barkov. He's awesome. He signs for $10 million per year. That is less than he's worth. And what makes this all possible in my mind is if you're Matthew Tkachuk, if you're Sam Reinhart, if you're Carter Verhaeghe, if you're this offseason, I would assume Sam Bennett, if I'm signing in Florida, I have to do so for less than $10 million because nobody makes more than Barkov on that team. That guy's the best player, and he's the captain. Everybody else comes in below that number. I think that is the hard part, Alex, is getting the first piece that is a superstar caliber player, whether he's viewed that way across the NHL or not, whatever. Like Barkov at this point should be getting his flowers. That guy makes $10 million. Tkachuk comes in, makes less than him. Everybody else filters in below them.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
It is.
If you can get that piece in place, now all the rest is possible. And you asked the follow-up question of, can the Blues do that?
Yeah.
Can they do that with Robert Thomas? And my answer is, I don't think so because his number is too low.
Yeah, because the one that I thought of was Crosby, but Crosby in his prime was at $9.5 million, and you can still come under that. And that was in a cap world where we weren't even talking about $10, $11, $12 million. And you're absolutely correct. Like, you can't get guys unless they're all just role depth players that are willing to sign for less than $8 million. So you do have to live in a world where somebody gets outpaid over the best player on your roster, and then what does that cause for your team? So yeah, you're absolutely correct, and that's the frustrating, not the frustrating part, but that's the hard part of doing what Florida has done and is going to continue to do.
Yeah, it makes it really hard. And then you have the cap or the tax situation. Jamie went through this yesterday on the Fast Lane, did a good job of explaining it, but basically like, because you're in Florida and you have the no state income tax, that adds a little bit to your salary artificially every year. And then you add that extra year, especially for them to retain their own players. And you're basically, even if you were going to market, you could get the 7-year deal elsewhere. But in terms of the guaranteed money, especially the take-home guaranteed after taxes, you could make an extra couple $1 million elsewhere, but you're really making the same guaranteed. So it doesn't really change a whole lot. So, yeah, I'll just take a little bit less, go right underneath Barkov. We'll stay here, have a good time, and win a whole hell of a lot of hockey games.
Bettman thinks the no state income tax doesn't have an impact on teams' build.
Yeah, It helps.
Yeah, it helps. And I mean, look, you have to win. Like when Florida was bad 10 years ago, nobody cared about the state income tax. So you have to put together the right roster, and all of that started with finding a Barkov and then getting that culture installed. But it also, like, I find the Florida Panthers roster construction fascinating because they were not the typical Edmonton Oilers that had to be bad for 15 years and have 6 guys that were drafted first overall. They're not the Vegas Golden Knights that just continue to trade big pieces away to bring other big pieces in. They make certain trades and then they stick with it. I think I saw Reinhart, Marchand, Tkachuk, and Verhaeghe, if I'm not mistaken, were all acquired from a first-round pick, 3 prospects, 2 of them that aren't even in the NHL anymore, and a third-round pick. Like, it's good roster construction. And then you got the best defenseman on their team who was acclaimed off of waivers.
Yeah, it's a masterclass, as we said yesterday.
Which, I mean, my big bullet point with this, because of what we were originally going to talk about, the way that James Myrtle framed that, the one line that caught my attention was they did not do this by overpaying in the free agent market.
And this gets us to the center market, which, whoo, boy.
Hit the dump button away.
Ryan Donato, 4x4. Not even sure he's a center. Matt Duchene, 4x4.5. And he's like 100 years old. So.
He's good. He's just not good on any other team. He's been bought out or traded by multiple teams.
Trent Frederick. You ready for this one, boys?
This is the reason why I don't want to play in the free agency.
This has not officially been announced yet, but it is anticipated based upon reports. Trent Frederick will get an 8-year deal to stay in Edmonton, worth $4 million roughly per season. So that's your benchmark right now, based upon what these guys have been able to receive. $4 to $4.5 million for that third to fourth line center, Alex. That's what you're looking at on the market, which means a guy like Suter, 5+, starting. And you're talking at a minimum 4 years, and anybody above that, just keep going up from there.
Yep. And there's really not anybody above that. Like, Tavares is the only one, and Tavares right now, Myrtle had in his piece that it's 3x7.5 is what basically Tavares told the Maple Leafs the starting point is Brock Nelson's deal with Colorado. And then the Maple Leafs are like, no, we'll give you more years and less money. So I think he'll hit the free agent market, but that's it. It's him, it's Suter, and then it's a ton of scrap. Taves. And you're going to pay a lot of, and Taves basically, I think his side has basically said it's come down to between the Avalanche, the Jets, and the Golden Knights. So, I hope he signs with the Golden Knights. That'd be great. That would be, well,
we could have one of their centers.
Friedman said yesterday on his 32 Thoughts that Vegas and Marner are a real possibility. So this is why I'm not playing in these waters. I know you guys don't like this because it's waiting and holding until something happens. I'm not playing in the free agency waters because it sounds like Vegas could be dealing, the Islanders could be dealing, Boston could be dealing. I still believe Ottawa is going to make some type of move with their centerman.
So here's the funny thing. The ironic part for my side of things, Alex, because I have pushed back against that idea. If the Blues do not sign a center on day 1 or 2, they should stay out of the center market.
Yep.
Because like the guys that you're interested in at this point have basically come down to Sam Bennett, John Tavares. I suppose you could make an argument if you wanted to for Mikael Granlund and then Pius Suter.
By the way, Frederick just ended his...
that's it?
Sorry, not to sidetrack. He just ended his season availability and said he's closing in on signing an 8-year contract extension. Frederick just dropping the bomb.
Sidebar, that's insane. Dude, good for Trent Frederick.
Absolutely.
8-year deal. He's guaranteed himself $32 million. He's going to see that money. God bless you, man.
He's going to get a no move.
I mean, more power to you. That is pure insanity and the opposite of what Edmonton should be doing right now. I don't. Where was he getting that elsewhere?
Nowhere. Nobody was giving him north of $4 million. And I think Frederick is a really good player. But 8 years is the wildest part to me. Because somebody might go out there and say, look, we really need a centerman. I'll give you 4.5.
Sure.
But we're only giving you 2 years.
Dude, we were talking about him as being like, oh, if everything else fails, you've got this option for like, maybe he wants to reset his market, $3 million for a year.
No.
And instead, they said 8 years, 4 per. I mean, we've seen this before with a guy like Nick Paul. Other players have been put on these really long-term deals to spread out the AAV. But normally you do that for like $2 million, and you're doing that instead of paying them 4x4, something like that.
Yeah.
This is $32 million means that they view him as like a 3-year, 7 per year kind of a guy.
The only reason
nobody was giving him that.
No, the only reason I think that they're doing this is because they're desperate to have that aggressiveness on their roster, and they're going to be moving on. Like, it sounds like Arvidsson's going to get bought out. Kane's probably going to be going through some type of NHL LTIR stuff. He might not be playing again. So, and Perry might not be coming back. Like,
crazy.
They want to keep these guys around, which I can understand, but not for 8x4. But, like, to me, the Frederick signing, the Brock Nelson signing, the Matt Duchene signing, this is teams that don't want to let these players go to the market because they don't want to play in those waters. And if these teams don't want to play in the free agency water, please stay away from free agency.
It is interesting that most of the guys that are re-signing with their teams are centers. And I find that to be somewhat like the canary in the coal mine type of a situation where these teams know where this market is heading. Mm-hmm. And they know, dude, look around the NHL and look at all the teams that you see right now connected to, man, if they could just find a second line center. You see that Toronto was that last year. We've seen that with Colorado in the past. Winnipeg is talking about that as well. Vancouver is talking about it. I mean, a bunch of these teams, contenders around the NHL, are looking for a legitimate second line center. And if all of those teams are looking for it and there's like one available, that means those third line centers are going to be propped up into that market and they'll be paid as if they're second line centers. That's my fear right now.
Yeah, the Pius Suter dream, boys, it's dead to me.
What do you think he's going to get?
I think you're probably talking 5 by 5.5, 5 by 6.
Is he?
No.
I wasn't going to go the direction that I think you thought I was going to go. Is he this year's Chandler Stevenson? It's a different profile.
Yeah.
Like there couldn't be more different as players, really. One of them, it's the playoff pedigree that's doing it. Because we've talked about Sam Bennett being that way. He's different. That Sam Bennett's going to get a crazy number because of his playoff success, and I have no idea if he's worth it or not.
Stevenson was always viewed, though, as a really good defensive centerman.
And that's what Suter is.
But that's why I think the comparison, I think they are. Like, I think people are looking at Suter. He doesn't have the playoff pedigree, but people are looking at that one season where he did play second-line center for Vancouver when they traded J.T. Miller, and that's where he really produced. People are seeing that, and then they're seeing how great he is defensively, and they're like, he is a second-line center.
And the production is pretty similar to what Chandler Stevenson was. I mean, he doesn't have the same upside. Stevenson in 23 had 65 points, but he's a consistent like 15 to 20 goal scorer. He's not a guy that puts up crazy goal production. Suter's actually more productive when it comes to the actual goals that he's able to produce. I wonder if Stevenson is going to be the one that he compares himself to. I don't think he gets the same years, but maybe it ends up being similar in terms of the AAV.
No, Stevenson was 29 when he signed that contract last year. He was like 29 turning 30.
Man.
So, I mean, he was 36. He's going to be 36 at the end of it. And, I mean, if Suter goes out there and says, like, even if they don't give him 6, because I think Stevenson was 6, maybe he was 7.
6.25 per year.
Yeah, I think Suter's looking at this saying, who else?
7 years, 6.25 per year.
Yeah.
Like, see, I like Suter. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do what you said, 5 by 5.5. I'm like 3 to 4 years is max where I would go.
His agent's probably looking around to teams saying, who else are you going to sign? Not going to go get Tavares. Do you really want to go get Granlund? He's not a center. My guy's a center.
All of this, by the way, makes me feel really good about the contracts that are currently on the Blues books.
Totally.
Yeah. That's been my biggest takeaway so far this offseason is you're going to have a lot of sticker shock for some of these guys that are heading to market. And whether that be Braden Shen, who is now on a not only market value deal, might be a steal compared to what guys are getting on the open market nowadays. You look at somebody that has been considered one of the worst contracts in the NHL by some, Colton Parayko, looking pretty good right about now. It's $6.5 million.
Let's have Dom on to talk about that.
Even a guy like Justin Falk, 2 years, 6.5 per. It's not great.
No, but
it's not immovable.
Yeah, it's a second pair or third pair that somebody would take on if they needed that type of player. They're in a good spot right now, and I just don't want them to jack it up by going out there and saying we're desperate to have a centerman, because I don't know if you are that desperate.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get to questions and answers. But next, NFL Quick Hitters here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals have a doubleheader today in Chicago as they take on the Chicago White Sox. Game one of the doubleheader will start at 1:10. Eric Fetty will be on the mound for St. Louis. Then the Cardinals will use Michael McGreevy as their 27th man, and he will start game two of today's doubleheader. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. SEMALondoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. We got this text real quick from the 314. Guys, is Adrian Peterson part of those quick hits coming up? He wasn't quick enough with those punches, if you ask me. Did you see this video?
Saw it. I can identify with it because I've always wanted to throw a punch sometimes when you're at a blackjack table.
So he was playing poker, and things got heated, and Adrian Peterson got into a fist fight with one of the other dudes.
It was because of a bad deal, wasn't it?
Apparently,
like a bad card deal that he had?
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine if Adrian Peterson came after you? I would sprint out of the room as quickly as I can, and then when he caught me, go into the fetal position. Like, Adrian...
Oh, man, that other dude was pretty big too, though.
Sure. Nah, man. I'm good. I'm good with that. No chance. That is a easy way for me to end up in the hospital.
I pulled it back up. You saw how the guy was backing away, though, right?
As you should.
Like, okay. Wait a minute.
It's like, I might have gone a little too far here.
You think when he started the confrontation, he didn't realize it was Peterson, and then when he stood up, he was like, oh, no.
Absolutely insane. All right, so there was a big move yesterday in the NFL. Jair Alexander, a good corner when healthy. He just hasn't been healthy very often. Previously with the Packers, is signing with the Baltimore Ravens. A one-year deal worth up to $6 million in Baltimore. A really good move by Baltimore, in my opinion. If I'm being honest, that's the team that really makes me nervous this year. I just have a feeling this is going to be a potential scorched earth Lamar Jackson season, once again. And now they've added up a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball. T-Bone, I know you were disappointed by this because your LA Rams were potentially in the market for a corner. They're still in the sweepstakes for bringing back Jalen Ramsey. Do you think that this is going to be the kind of move that could put the Ravens over the top this season?
I think it's possible because I really like Alexander as kind of a buy low candidate, which they did. So I like the fact that Baltimore went out. They had kind of the in because he was Lamar Jackson's roommate in college. I like this signing for Baltimore. Really helps their secondary. Defensively, they've been a solid team. I'm kind of with you, and I feel like you could see a big year from Lamar. I still don't know if they're able to get over the hump because I've seen Lamar struggle in the offseason, or in the postseason, excuse me. I really wish the Rams would have made this move. I want him so much more than I want Jalen Ramsey, who's like a corpse at this point, running around at their corner. And then what do the Rams do because of this signing? They go out and they re-sign Darian Kendrick. Like, oh, come on.
There you go.
He's good, man. He's good. He's ready for his comeback.
They had him last year. He was fine. I think it's the biggest weakness on the Rams. It's their secondary.
It's definitely their biggest weakness, and it makes me really nervous about them. I still have some questions about the Ravens' offense, and it's not the running game. The running game is going to be amazing, and it's not their passing game during the regular season. It'll be fine. He'll put up big numbers, Lamar Jackson will, and they'll win like 12, 13 games. I just have concerns when your top guys at the receiver position are Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman for like the third consecutive season. That's fine. It's not bad. I just don't know if that's good enough to win in January. When you're going up against Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, is that good enough for you to make that next step, to win 3 or 4 consecutive games, to beat the best teams in the NFL? I don't know, man. That's my big concern with him. I think the defense is going to be significantly improved. They have done a ton to improve their secondary especially, and that was their biggest weakness a year ago. So I do think they have had a good offseason. The defense being better will help them. I just still have some concerns over their wide receiver position and whether or not they've done enough to improve there. All right, I did want to get your guys' thoughts on this. A piece over on CBSSports.com was written earlier today on the quarterback tier rankings. You know we love our tiers here on BK and Ferrario. They have now the top tier in the NFL at the quarterback position as 6 different players. Let me start here. Do you guys believe that Patrick Mahomes is still in a tier of his own?
Yeah.
Because I think that for most of his career, you could start out by saying it's Mahomes, and then we can talk about who's in tier 2. Is that still the case in 2025?
I think so.
I don't
think so either.
I think his athletic ability, his ability to make plays in big games, it doesn't take away from him.
I don't think Mahomes has been the best regular season quarterback in 3 years now. And in the playoffs, he was good last year. He was great 2 years ago. I don't know that the gap is there anymore between he and Josh Allen. And I certainly don't think it's wide. I would have him and Josh Allen as that top tier. I would not have anybody else in that with them. But to me, Josh Allen has closed the gap enough, and Mahomes' play has fallen back just enough. So I think those guys are in the same tier for me.
I don't think he's in a tier of his own. I don't know if I would separate Mahomes and Allen either. I kind of fall in between there on you. I think those guys are 1 and 2 in the NFL, but I don't think like Lamar doesn't belong in the same tier as them.
So you're saying Lamar should be in the same tier with them?
Yeah, okay. I think so as well.
With Mahomes?
Yeah. I don't think Mahomes. I don't think Mahomes is on his own. I also don't think it's just Mahomes and Allen.
I actually think Mahomes, Allen, and Lamar are in 3 tiers of their own. Like, I think Allen is as close to Mahomes as he can be without being there, and I think some of this is just you gotta win that game, man. And it sucks to take that away from him because he's not the reason they lost that game.
That's my thing. I can't hold that against him anymore. Josh Allen in those games has been great against Mahomes. Lamar has not.
Yeah.
That's why I have him in a different tier, T-Bone. It's because when Lamar loses in the playoffs, he is generally speaking at fault for those losses. Yeah, Allen's not.
I think you swayed me. I think Allen and Mahomes are in the same tier.
Okay.
I think you swayed me.
I would have Lamar in the same category right now as Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels. I think that, to me, would be my second tier.
Wow, you'd have Jaden Daniels already there?
Yes. He's special.
I think I need to see another year of it with Jaden Daniels before I put him there.
If you can make it to the NFC Championship game in year 1, that's the kind of thing that Burrow did with the Bengals, and it swayed me so much to where I was like, okay, that's the dude.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels, to me, is already in that category. If I'm going to have Burrow there, I got to have Jaden Daniels.
Where's Anthony Richardson on your tiers?
He's not in them.
Oh. What about Jordan Love?
Not in them. No, Love would probably be like tier 3.
I was going to say, surely you just kick Jordan Love all the way out of your
So here's a fun one. Where do you put Matt Stafford in a conversation like this?
Below that second tier.
Oh, see, I think he belongs in the tier.
I think you could make a really strong case for him to be in there.
Let's just say I go with you guys, right? Of Allen, Mahomes, in a tier of their own. I think he belongs at minimum in that second tier. I mean, he's a winning quarterback. He wins in the playoffs. He's the guy that kept the Rams in that game against the Philadelphia Eagles, in which they lost this year in the playoffs. And they were the only team that really pushed Philly. It wasn't the Chiefs. They got their butts handed to them in the Super Bowl.
We don't have to bring that up.
I know. I enjoy bringing it up, though. But I think he belongs in that second tier.
I would have him maybe in like a tier of his own, because I can't really have...
All these guys are making their own tiers.
He's in the same category with Burrow, Daniels, Lamar. Like, I don't think he's there, but I also don't think I can have him in the same category as like Jared Goff or Brock Purdy or Jordan Love or Dak Prescott, Baker Mayfield. Those guys aren't in the same level as Matt Stafford to me, so he's kind of like in his own spot. What do you do with Justin Herbert?
I think he's in that third tier.
I'd probably
the next one.
Yeah.
Man, I don't even know if I could put him in the Stafford tier.
That's why I have Stafford alone.
I think Stafford's by himself because he's not in that second tier, in my opinion.
I think Herbert is on the track to be the next Matt Stafford. Does that make sense? Like, Stafford had so little team success early on in his career. It was all about, like, I'm putting up these big
Herbert's
numbers.
got to go to another team?
I don't know, maybe. I think he also just got the right coach now, so we'll see what happens with him success-wise in L.A. over the next few years.
I think he'd be in a Purdy category for me right now.
I watch Justin Herbert on the field, and I'm like, that guy is special. He is a stud. But then you see the team success, the lack of playoff success for him. The numbers are good, but not spectacular. And it's all just like, man, he's just a really good quarterback. Probably like 6 to 10-ish in the NFL, most likely on any given season. And that feels very Matt Stafford-y from the mid-2010s.
Damn, I get that.
T-Bone, were you old enough to really, I'm genuinely asking, to really appreciate Stafford in like the early 2010s?
I remember those teams kind of, but like not a lot.
Okay.
And like they weren't.
Alex, you remember those early Matt Stafford years, right?
I mean, Megatron was one of my favorite players growing up, so that's who I didn't appreciate Stafford as much as I appreciated Megatron.
Stafford was winning like 9 games consistently with the Detroit Lions, which is impossible. Never had any playoff success, but was consistently putting up 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns every season.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That's the part that really reminds me of what we're currently watching from Herbert.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, like I watch Herbert, and I don't think he's the next Stafford. I think he's just constantly stuck in tier 3. I don't know if he gets to that next level to get up to tier 2.
Stafford didn't until he was like 34, to be fair.
That's fair.
7 years from now.
He didn't until he got actually to a good team.
That's fair. But I still think like Herbert, to your point, is like in a good situation now. I think it was fair to question the situation when they had Staley doing whatever the hell he was doing.
I think it's still
coaching.
fair to question the situation, not the coaching. I don't think he has great weapons right now. I think it's going to take a little while for that team to get to where they want to go, but at least he has the right coaching staff in place, finally.
Yeah, that's fair.
Next thing up, last thing here. We want to hear from you. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. That's coming up next. Do you guys see who has the highest royalties in the NFL right now? It's not Travis Kelce, surprisingly enough.
It's not Mahomes?
Not Mahomes.
I'm trying to think of who it would be. Because I did not see this list.
I'll give you 10 guesses, and I bet you don't get it.
Saquon?
Can I have a position?
Quarterback.
Burrow?
Nope.
Daniels?
Nope.
Lamar?
Nope.
How many? Is that 4? Okay, let's not waste these. Damn
Stroud.
Nope.
Oh,
Come on, man. Yeah.
It's a BK game. Come on.
so-
It'd be way out there. A quarterback.
You got to go big city. So is it Stafford?
Nope.
How many guesses have we used? 6?
6.
Okay, so we got 4 more. Is there anybody in
I'll tell you,
the
Herbert was third.
Is there
Who
anybody
was
in the
second?
I just told you Kelce.
Oh,
Is there anybody in the New York area that would be
Peyton Manning was fourth. Yes, that's right. Peyton Manning, who's been
wait, are we
retired.
all retired guys?
No, this guy
Because
is,
Tom Brady's won.
this guy is currently in the NFL. I will not say active, but currently in the NFL.
Aaron Rodgers.
No.
I have no idea who to say.
J.J. McCarthy?
What? Are you kidding me?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, I
You
was
could
never
have
gonna
given me
guess that.
100 guesses and I wouldn't have gotten that.
I don't understand it.
Good for you.
He got $4 million in royalty money, the most that any player has pulled in a single season since Brady made $7 million in 22.
Who'd he get it from?
The royalties from the NFLPA. I don't know, man. Apparently he's super popular. Had no idea. Had no idea he
Great
had that
team
kind of
guy.
popularity.
Great team guy, I've heard.
Yeah. So that was
What
that was
the
what he got.
hell? There's got to be an algorithm problem,
I don't
right?
understand
No,
it.
JJ's just rolling in it right now. He doesn't even care if he gets the starting quarterback job. I'm good.
$4 million. He made as much basically from this $4 million in royalties as he did from his rookie TV or rookie deal.
He's pulling the Chase Daniel here. Just get as much money as you need and just don't play.
Coming up next,
Good for
questions
him.
and answers here on BK and Ferrario. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. From the 314, guys, you were just talking about quarterbacks and where they rank in the tiers. When are you going to put Hurts in that tier 1? He has a ring, went to another Super Bowl. What else is it going to take? A, consistency. B, doing so without the help of so much talent.
I was just going to ask, does anybody believe that the Eagles win that Super Bowl if they don't have Saquon Barkley on the roster?
I mean, and it's unfair to a degree because, like, Mahomes early on in his career had a great supporting cast. He had Travis Kelce, he had Tyreek Hill, and he was still putting up those numbers. Maybe it's unfair of me. I don't view Jalen Hurts in the same light as Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. If you want to put him in that second category with Burrow and who else did we have in that category right now? Jaden Daniels, like, you want to throw him in there? Sure. I could listen to that argument, but tier 1 with 2 guys that I think are the elite of the elite, I'm not having him there. Nope. I don't think he's in that same category.
Yeah, I don't, to your point of, like, he hasn't done it without weapons yet. I think when you think of the Chiefs, you think of the Bills, it's never a, holy cow, we got to stop Mahomes and Xavier Worthy and Isaiah Pacheco today. It's not, how the hell do we stop Mahomes? It's not just how do we stop their offense. When you think about the Eagles, to your guys' point is, okay, well, boy, we got to prepare for Barkley. Okay, now we got to make sure that A.J. Brown doesn't beat us deep. By the way, Devontae Smith's coming across the middle. It's never we got to worry about Jalen Hurts.
I would also add this. One of the key differences to me between him, talking about Jalen Hurts, and Allen/Mahomes, I've never seen them go through a season like what the Eagles had in 2023. They've never had that kind of just disastrous fall. When they started 10-1, finished the year 11-6, and got blown out in the playoffs against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I've never seen that with either Mahomes or with Josh Allen. Their teams don't do that. So that's part of this as well, is when you have that on your resume and it's not all that far away, something that's going to be difficult for people to overcome this quickly.
Yep. All
right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. From the 636, 618. Guys, if Puerto Rico wins the next WBC, is it a no-brainer for Yachty to become the next Cardinals manager? I don't see it that way at all. I think a lot of this comes down to how do you see Ollie. If you think Ollie is a good manager and is a guy that can win a championship with you, you keep Ollie in place and you probably give him an extension this offseason.
Yeah, I think some of this, too, is Yachty ready to be a manager? He's got to decide if he's ready to take on that role, because once you jump in fully and you're into it. I don't know if Yachty's just going to go straight into management. I partially wonder if he does do bench coach or something, but then I also kind of feel like Yachty looks at this as, I'm not going to work for somebody. I'm going to work for myself. If he has success, yeah, I can see him be ready to be the manager. I don't know if it's guaranteed as a Cardinals manager.
Yeah, that's where I just have a tough time is, like, if I'm Chaim Bloom, do I really want to hire a Yachty or Molina to be the next manager? He suddenly becomes the face of the organization. And I'm not saying Chaim wants to be the face of the organization, but I just don't see why Chaim Bloom would want to do that. And I think Ollie's a good manager. So in my opinion, you just give him a contract extension. But the other thing, too, is, guys, it's the WBC. It's like a 6-game tournament. When you talk about managing a Major League Baseball team, you've got to go through the rigors of a 162-game grind, and then if you get to October, that as well.
Yeah. I'm not positive that Yachty is going to be a great manager either. I don't know what that's going to look like. And I think sometimes we talk too definitively about any of these things. We just don't know.
Well, I'm unsure if Pujols is going to be a great manager.
Sure.
Like, until you see it, you don't know what this looks like.
There are times where I see a coaching hire where I'm like, there's no way that fails. There's no way. It can't possibly fail. It's going to work. And then you watch it fail. You're like, man, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
And managers more so than anything else, because we have no idea. The job is, like, Bruce Bochy, we would all agree, great manager, right?
Mm-hmm.
Won a World Series in Texas, won multiple when he was with San Francisco. And since that World Series in Texas, they've been mostly a disaster. That's not Bruce Bochy's fault. Managing's hard. And a lot of it is just you are a reflection of your talent. I think if you have a bad manager, you can screw up a good team. But as long as you're like a solid manager, if you've got a great roster, you can typically make this work in Major League Baseball. It can help. It helps to have a great manager, especially in the postseason. But I think sometimes it gets a little bit overstated on the value of that. Hell, David Roberts was viewed as a dunce by some Dodgers fans up until this past season because he couldn't get it done in the big games. Some of that's just luck. And some of that is, dude, their pitchers are always hurt. So you get to October, and it's like, man, who's going to start for you? I guess we're going to go to Clayton Kershaw in the 7th inning once again.
Bullpen game.
Coming up next, where do you rank the Panthers among the best teams of the last 20 years? It's something that The Athletic tried to do earlier today. I'll ask Alex that. And when you go up against potentially one of the 5 best teams, spoiler alert, of the last 20 years, how do you evaluate your team when you lose to them? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN. All right, Alex, now that we have crowned the Stanley Cup champion, and they've done it in back-to-back years, and they have reached the Stanley Cup final in 3 consecutive seasons, the conversation turns to where they rank in history, right? Where does this team belong among the best that we have seen in recent memory? And over on The Athletic, they ranked what they believe to be the best runs in the cap era. So this is the last 20 years, basically, in the NHL. For context, at number 6, they had the Detroit Red Wings from 2007 to 2009. At number 5 is the Penguins' run from 2016 to 2018. Number 4 is the Kings' run from 2012 to 2014. And then in that same time frame, the Chicago Blackhawks is at number 3. And at number 1, they had the Tampa Bay Lightning from 2020 to 2022. They have the Florida Panthers as the second best run that we have seen in the NHL in the last 20 years. Alex, do you agree with that place for them?
I don't. I would put them at number 1. I would juggle around in a lot of the other rankings too, but the one that matters is where Panthers are, and the Panthers' run has been more impressive than what the Tampa Bay Lightning did. And not to take anything away, but we all know the COVID one, I can't really count. I know that was tough to win, but I just can't count that as the same Stanley Cup championship as the other 2 that Tampa did. But for the Florida Panthers to win it twice in a row for a full 82-game schedule and then get there in that first year and lose, and I believe they lost in Game 6 of that Stanley Cup final versus Vegas, it's more impressive to me. Plus, I also look at the age of the players, and if we're going off of just like the roster construction as well, it's more impressive. Like you're doing this with 3 guys that are under the age of 30 that are all under contract for at minimum the next 6 years. So yeah, the Panthers would be number 1 on this list, and it would be no close second.
I've got another piece to this puzzle. Now, I think some of this might be how do you value regular season success? Because the Panthers this year, while a very good team, we're not, like the President's Trophy winner or anything like that. So if that influences your choice on this, sure, go ahead. They weren't quite to the same level as some of these other teams. Can we talk about goal differential in the playoffs, Alex?
Yeah, I saw the stat and...
Oh, you've seen it? Okay,
yeah.
Damn, I thought I was going to have a good one for you.
I saw this stat because they led the playoffs in goals scored, and then they were the best in terms of goal difference. What was it, a plus 39?
38. They were a plus 38 in 23 games this postseason. Let me give you some context. The last team, let me ask you that question, actually. Who do you think was the last team in the NHL playoffs to have at least a plus 35 goal differential? How long ago do you think that was?
Trying to think of some.
Vegas in 23 was a plus 31, to give you some context on this.
So the team prior to that, plus 30.
Plus 35 or better in the postseason goal differential. Who do you think was the last team to do that? I'll give you 3 guesses.
Islanders in the 80s.
Ooh, they did do this. There's been one before since,
that?
But the Islanders did it in 1981 and in 1983. They were a plus 49 and a plus 41. Pretty good.
Ferraro said on this podcast with Dreger a couple of days ago that the only team he can resemble this Florida Panthers build to is what the Islanders did back in the 80s, and they were a freaking dynasty.
Yes, that's correct.
So another team after the Islanders.
Was it one of those Blackhawks years?
Nope.
Okay.
I can't think of elite goalies.
Dominant.
It's got to be one of the New Jersey Devils.
Nope.
No?
They, in 1995, had a plus 33, so they were close, but they did not quite get there. I'll give you one more guess.
Is it
I would not guess the Kings if that's what you're going with.
I was going to guess the Kings.
I don't remember them being extremely dominant, though. That's
not offensively, but defensively and quick was incredible. All right,
they were a plus 27.
Shoot on this one. Cam Ward with the Carolina Hurricanes.
They were not in this conversation. They weren't even close. Edmonton.
With Hobby Bullen?
Edmonton in 1984 and 1985.
Oh, no, with Fear.
plus 38 and plus 41 in those 2 runs.
Yep.
Florida had the best goal differential of any team in the playoffs in 40 years. Yeah, I think you can go ahead and put them down as the best team. Mm-hmm. And they didn't go up against some terrible opponents this postseason.
No, they went up against Wayne Gretzky-esque.
And I saw another stat on what they did against the top players over the last 2 years, Alex, defensively. They completely shut down McDavid and Draisaitl. Mm-hmm. Nobody shuts those dudes down. So I would have to have them at number 1 on my list as well over the last 20 years. And I think the follow-up question to that is something that might be somewhat obvious. If you're going up against what we think is the best team of the last 20 years, and you're trying to evaluate where you're at, like you're Edmonton, you're Toronto, dude, how am I supposed to evaluate my roster when that is what we went up against? And in probably most other seasons, in the last 20 years, we would have hoisted the cup, but we ran into those bleeping guys on the other side in the 1 year where not only did they have the same team for the most part as 2024, they then had Brad Marchand and Seth Jones.
Yeah.
Get out of here with this, man. So I don't know what you do if you're Toronto or Edmonton and you're thinking to yourself, all right, how do we do this for next year? Because you want to overhaul things completely because you don't feel like you stacked up against them.
Yeah.
But nobody stacks up against this team, including the best teams over the last 20 years.
Right. And that's why, like, if you're Edmonton, you can't get too crazy with it. Like Edmonton, I feel like if you look at the roster and you say, I think there's one simple fix. We got to get a better goaltender. Now, simple in the terms of it's one transaction, but it's probably the hardest transaction to do to go find a...
It's like feels like saying we need a quarterback. Yeah. Okay, well, sure.
Or it feels like we need an ace. Like, congrats, good luck finding them, but you need a playoff goaltender.
Or a superstar position player.
Good luck drafting and developing. You can't do that with Edmonton anymore. But
or pay $600 million.
I think the more fascinating one is the Toronto side of things, or if the teams in the Eastern Conference. Like, I can understand your point of leaning like, I mean, you can't blow things up because you were right there with the Florida Panthers. But it's not so much this postseason if you're Toronto. It's the last 4 postseasons.
But this team it's impossible to do this. It should be evaluated as its own entity because you got a new coach who implemented a new system. And you took the Florida Panthers to 7 games, dude.
Yeah, but
you had them on the brink.
The problem for that team, and this is just my tinfoil of what they're thinking when they went this path with Mitch Marner. Marner was good in that postseason, but he scored 2 goals. Like, I think if I'm Craig Berube, I'm looking at my roster saying we've got a lot of the same guys. We don't have game breakers. Florida doesn't have a lot of the same guys. Florida's got guys that do things different on every single line, whether it's Tkachuk, whether it's Barkov, whether it's Reinhart, Verhaeghe. They all play different roles. This team had Marner, who was a distributor, John Tavares, who was a distributor, William Nylander, who was their only goal scorer, and then from there, you had nothing. So, like, I think the way they're looking at it isn't so much we pushed them to 1 game, let's run it back. It's we can't keep doing this with the same group of guys.
I hear you, but they fired their president and they pushed this team to 7 games. They fired the team president. They're going to completely overhaul the roster. They're going to change the way that they play. Like, all of this stuff is happening, and maybe it's necessary. Maybe. They pushed the team that we just said is the best team of the last 20 years to 7 games.
Yeah.
Despite all of the things that you said, Alex, Marner's struggles, him watching a puck go in the other direction. They have too much of the same. They had a goalie that was hurt. All of these different factors. They have like 2 defensemen that are worth a you know what. And yet, despite all of that, the team that we agree is the best of the last 2 decades in the NHL was pushed 1 time to the brink in this postseason. And it was by the team that is blowing it up this offseason.
But see, that's
amazing.
But see, that's the thing. I don't know if they're really blowing it up. Like, yes, they fired their president.
2 of their top 5 players are going to be gone.
Maybe. I mean, it sounds like Tavares, if they can get the deal right, will be back. And the one guy, I actually think they might be playing this right. You're moving on from a Mitch Marner, who is a lot like what your other 2 highest paid players are. In fact, Nylander and a Matthews are better than what Marner is because they produce as well as score goals. They're going to allocate that $14 million that was going to go to him to a Matthew Nyes, who is a younger...
But you're not getting better that way.
No, you're not.
Because it's the same player that was already there that you're just now spending more money for.
Let's say Nyes is $7 million. Now I got $7 more million to go spend on a winger who can score in my top 6.
Maybe. Or you're spending that money on bringing back John Tavares, and now I just have the same roster as I did a year ago.
Well, no, Tavares might be cheaper.
Maybe.
Compared to what he was, and it's only $1 million. Because, like, if you're Toronto, your defense stays the same. In fact, this was the best defense they've had in the last 4 Stanley Cup playoffs. Your goaltending, you lost Stolarz. If you had Stolarz, I wonder what happens in that series against the Panthers. Your problem was offense. Your problem was you didn't have enough guys who could score goals beyond Matthews and Nylander, and Marner is kind of the odd man out there because he wants $14 million, but he doesn't produce offensively.
The other half of that money is coming from Nylander, by the way, whose contract goes up to 13. Starts to go with a big cap increase this upcoming season.
Because it's 11.
It's 11 and a half starting this year. I think this is if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the first
goes
year
up
of his
$7
new
million.
contract.
Yeah.
So,
but they got $29 million to spend in this free agency, and 14 of that was about to go to Marner. And now you can, again, it's not much because Nyes is getting paid.
That's what I'm saying.
Tavares might be getting paid.
The money from Marner is just going to two guys. It's going to what you already have in place with Nylander, that the increase from where he was to where he's going to be this upcoming season, and then the increase from what Nyes was to where he's going to be this upcoming season. So there's your money for Marner. Yep. And then you have to make your choice on, okay, where are we spending that $14 million? How are we allocating it? So it could be we're bringing back Tavares at 7, and then we have $7 million to spend on like 2 middle 6 guys. It's a choice.
You also know that you just can't play in the same waters as Florida because...
But you took him to 7.
I know,
and
but...
nobody else did.
I
don't know, man.
As a team, I can't justify coming back with the same roster after 4 straight years where I can't get past the second round.
They have to do this.
Something has to change.
They have to do what you're saying. But it is kind of an amazing thing. The ironic part of all of this is they might have finally found the roster build and the coach to make this thing work if they can get the goalie healthy for next postseason. They just, A, ran into a buzzsaw, and B, ran out of time.
Yeah.
Like that's it. It was the final year where they could try this thing out. They had to move on from Marner. I agree with you. But now they're blowing it up when it might have actually finally found the solution.
I would love to know, which we would never will, I'd love to know if this is partially Berube's thought process of you can't bring back Marner. You can't bring back these guys. You got to get somebody else. Or if Berube's the one saying like, hey, I need these guys, and the Toronto's like, no. We're doing this differently. That's the part that I find fascinating.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. How would you feel if the Blues, like the team that they ran up against this year in the playoffs, was the Florida Panthers? Like if the Blues did this postseason, they lost in 5 games to the
So like the Blues beat
Panthers.
the Jets, they got all the way to the Stanley Cup final, lost in 5 games?
Let me ask this a different one. The Blues are in the Eastern Conference.
Okay.
They lose in the first round to the Panthers in 5 games. Is it like that probably changes a little bit your perspective on how they performed in that postseason, right? Now that we have seen the full context of what this Panthers team was, that's really what I'm trying to get at.
I'm still pretty high about them, considering they got to 7 overtime with Winnipeg, who was the President's Trophy team. But yeah, if you go 5 with Florida, I feel great about my team.
Coming up next, how do the Cardinals get Jordan Walker to become the player that everybody listening right now wants him to be? What does that process look like, and how can they get him there? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. So, Alex, yesterday we had the pleasure of catching up with Cardinals hitting coach Brant Brown. I think it's highly worth your time if you have not checked it out yet. Check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com. The free 101ESPN app is where you can go to find that, or on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL, because he was on video with us yesterday. Alex, I think it was you that asked him about Jordan Walker, if I'm not mistaken. And he had a really interesting thought on where Walker is, where they want him to get, and what that process is going to look like. Take a listen. This is Brant Brown yesterday here on the show.
You know, we are still a work in progress because, you know, the league is doing different things. You know, at the beginning, kind of one of the big things was like he was really good with 2 strikes. So we asked him, hey, like, what, you know, why do you hit so good with 2 strikes? He's like, oh, I just relax. And I'm like, well, then why don't we just relax the whole at bat? And then 3-2, he was highly aggressive. So, you know, they would just throw him spin. He would swing at it. And he's done a good job of laying off that and earning pitches and getting back into counts. But even 3-2, earning some walks because he's just not offering at those pitches that they're throwing according to the data. So 1 is just trying to get him more relaxed. 2 is having him understand his own body. Like, he is a big person with a lot of range. And sometimes, like, he limits himself with kind of like what he's trying to do at the plate. So we're trying to play to his strengths. I still think, like I said before, it's a work in progress. But at the end of the day, like, he needs to realize, you know, he sees a lot of different stuff because he hits the ball very hard. And he needs to understand that going into the box, and that guys are going to be super careful with him because they don't want to see a ball leave the park. So when he can really lock it in and understand that fact, you know, I think we'll just see more production out of him.
Alex, I find him to be so interesting because, man, you look at the profile, and T-Bone, you and I both like looking over at Baseball Savant, and you can see like the blue, the red. The blue's bad, red is good. And that's oversimplification, but, man, he hits the ball incredibly hard. His bat speed is crazy. It's like the best in Major League Baseball. He swings the bat incredibly hard. And maybe there is something to, like, hey, swing it a little softer, the way that Gorman did, to be able to get himself to get to more contact. And then you look at the way that he is chasing this year. The whiff rate is among the worst in Major League Baseball. His strikeout rate has consistently crept up in the 3 years. He was at 22% strikeout rate in year 1, 28% last year, and this year he's up to a 32% strikeout rate. Why is that happening? Because of the spin. Brant Brown mentioned it. 47% swing and miss rate against any kind of a breaking pitch. So, Alex, if they throw Jordan Walker a slider, they throw him 2 in an at-bat, the odds are he's going to swing and miss at one of them. So you have to fix that first. It's the Alec Burleson thing, but slightly different. Like, Burleson's problem is he swings at pitches that he can't do damage against. And when he does that, it takes himself out of the zone where he can do damage against pitches. So you've got to lock in on, I'm not swinging at that. I can't do anything with it. I'm going to put it in play, but it's going to be a weak grounder to second base. I need to do some damage in this at-bat. For Walker, it is, I can't swing at that. That slider is low and away. I'm not going to be able to do anything with it. And then that brings the pitcher back into the zone on fastballs, which he's actually been pretty good against this season. Batting .250 with a .400 slugging percentage, and he's been a bit unlucky against fastballs so far this year. Until he does that, these are the results that we're going to see. But what I find fascinating is the context of the situation right now, Alex, where they have like 100 outfielders that are trying to get playing time, which means he's getting less and less opportunities to do these in games. My hope, if I'm a Cardinals fan today, is that he can do what Gorman did, which is do your work behind the scenes, get yourself into a good place mentally, and hopefully whenever that chance comes where you're playing every day again, you get to see that work pay off. We saw it with Gorman. Now he's back to the bench. Hopefully we can see something similar with Walker. What did you make of what Brant Brown said yesterday?
Yeah, for me, hearing him talk about it was pretty evident that the work in progress with Walker is like, we've got to fix the mental side of the approach before we fix the physical side of the approach. Him talking about how Walker says he's relaxed when it's an 0-2 or 1-2 count, and then when it's 3-2, he starts to be overly aggressive, and it's like, well, how about we just do this the whole at-bat? That's the mental side of working with a younger player and saying, like, this is the approach that we need to do, fix this, and then we could take it to the plate in game situations. he's the one that, it's still a work in progress. It's going to take some time. And now that you've got a hitting coach that seems to have a serious impact on a lot of your hitters, he's the one that should be allowed that runway to figure it out. And I know you could use this same argument for a guy like Nolan Gorman. I think with Gorman, it's just been a longer sample size at the major league level where we've seen this, where he goes up and down. For Walker, we saw one really good year with a completely different strategy from a hitting coach. We saw a bad year where he was sent to the minors and we didn't see him again. And then now we're seeing him with a new hitting coach. It feels like you just need some consistency with him. And hearing Brant Brown talk, it's like that sports psychologist. You got to have him sit down with him and figure out what's going on in your head before we could take you to the plate and start working on the bat. Because if you don't fix the head, the bat's always never going to play.
Yeah, he is, based on hearing what Brant Brown said yesterday, and I think we kind of cut it out there. There was a very long pause before he answered. I think it goes to show. I felt like I
angered him when I asked the question. I'm like, oh, jeez.
I think it just goes to show how much of a project he still is. Which, and look, I was one of them that said he should be up when they left spring training in 2023. Coming off of a great spring, though he did cool at the end there. I thought he belonged on the team because I thought he was. I've always thought, hey, if you can play, no matter the age, you're going to be able to play at the big leagues. And I thought he was that kind of a special talent. And he had a very good year. But I think what it's gone to show now as time has gone on that he is such a project. And I think what makes it so tough for the Cardinals now is the fact that, okay, yeah, we're working with him here at the big league level. Why? Because you can't send this guy back down, right? I just don't think you can. Sure, he's got options to send him down there. I think at this point you just laid your bet already that, hey, he's going to have to learn and develop at the big leagues, which is not where you want to be.
Well, he has to, because there's one thing that he's struggling against. If he goes down to AAA, he's going to have success. Yeah. They don't have the same sliders down there that they have up here. The secondary pitches are just better, and they know how to locate them. They know how to play to the weaknesses of Jordan Walker, so that's why you can't send him down. It's not about his mentals. It's not about anything else. Man, if you could, great. But they can't because he won't learn down there. It's like Palante.
I was going to say.
What's Palante have to learn down in AAA? Nothing.
No. He's going to go beat AAA pitcher. I mean, we talked all the time about how, like, AAA is just, it's not what it used to be in terms of level of competition. You're going to mow through AAA, and then you're going to be like, oh, this dude's a stud. Bring him back, and we have the same problems once again.
He's got to find a way to get out right-handed hitters at the major league level.
That's the plan. That's the plan. Double A's better.
That's the plan for Andre Palante, and the plan for Jordan Walker is, how do we get you to stop offering at that low and away spin? If we can do that, we might have something here. And I mentioned this guy whenever the Cardinals played against the Detroit Tigers, but Spencer Torkelson is the guy that I would point to, right? He's 25 years old now, and for the first time in his major league career, he's finally had some traction. Now, he still strikes out way too much. Like, this guy, he swings and misses a lot. He doesn't have a high average, and it's continuing to go down as the season goes along, and I think he's just going to be a low-power hitter for the rest of his career. But, dude, does he hit for power. He has 16 home runs so far this season. He's on pace for like 35 over the course of the year. He's on pace for more than 100 ribbies. He's a guy that can be in the middle of your order, and you feel good about it with Spencer Torkelson. I don't know if that's the exact profile that I would expect Jordan Walker to be, but my point with bringing him up is sometimes this stuff just takes time. And you mentioned that he's a project, T-Bone. I think that's exactly right. I think we viewed Walker as, oh, man, give it a year, this guy's going to be a stud.
Can't miss prospect.
He's right there. Like, he's ready for the big leagues. Oh, no, maybe not. He's going to come back next year. He's going to be good to go. He's not. He's not good to go. It's going to take a lot longer than any of us anticipated, and maybe it never happens for him. Maybe he becomes Joe Adell, who was supposed to become the next big thing for the Angels, and it hasn't worked for them, man. He's 6'2", 220 pounds, and had a little bit of early success, and he's now settled in as like a slightly below league average major league hitter. Maybe that's what Walker is. Hopefully not, but you've got to give it more time, in my opinion.
And that's why, like, going back to our open today, I don't know, like, look, I agree. I believe he is a project still. But I also know the big leagues are not where it's supposed to be learned, and they're stuck at doing that. And now it comes back to what you just said about, like, hey, maybe now he, like, maybe fans are saying sits the pine a little bit, gets his work in behind the scenes, and then hopefully gets out when an opportunity comes. To me, this is where it comes back to, can they balance runway and winning? And I think the answer is no. I think he has to be locked into right field. And I know that means you're probably sitting in Alec Burleson, or you're sitting in New Bar.
How can you justify that?
Well, it's about the runway, right? I don't think this whole, like, working behind the scenes thing, he needs work behind the scenes. That I agree with. But how are we going to work behind the scenes and then see if it's working if we're never playing him?
I mean, he is playing occasionally.
I think he's got to play more.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
I think he should be out there every single day. And I think the guy that falls into this, because you ask, how can you justify that? Burleson's in left.
And then
Newbar's not out of the equation.
Man, that's tough too.
I think we're playing the hot bats right now with certain guys. I think you're playing the hot bat with Burleson.
But then that's
and
the opposite of what T-Bone's saying. That's playing for success. If you're playing the hot bat, that is about success, and that is about trying to win more so than it is about the runway.
I don't think there's runway for guys like Nootbaar. I think you know what Nootbaar is. You're it's the same with Gorman, in my opinion. Whether he's injured or he's healthy, he's always going through slumps.
With Nootbaar, though, the reason that I would push back on that is because, like, he's been better than all of the guys that we're talking about for the entirety of his career, and he's been really bad for, like, 20 games. So we're out on Nootbaar because of a 20-game sample size where he has not hit.
But it's inconsistency, whether it's health or bat.
Sure, but for 5 years now, he's been 15 to 20% above league average offensively.
Well, I get it, but for 5 years, we've only had him, or the Cardinals have only had him for half the season.
110, 110, 115.
Yeah, I think what they need to do moving forward is, I mean, you either got to pick a path. If you're saying we're going with, hey, we need to win now, then it is playing the hot bats. It is no longer this kind of carousel that I would call it that they're doing right now, which, again, like, I'm not even saying it's the wrong thing to do, but if it's still, the season is still going to have this word runway in it, I'm locking in Nootbaar in left and I'm locking in Walker in right, and we win or we don't. That's just simple as that, right? If we lose because Walker doesn't hit,
your runway includes Nootbaar.
Yeah, I would include Nootbaar in runway.
And your runway includes Burleson
because
over
I think your point.
This is where it's hard.
I think your point on Nootbaar over the last 5 years, whatever it is, 4 or 5 years as being a big league hitter, I think he's just in a rut, right? I think he's coming out of it. I don't think Nootbaar like suddenly can't hit a baseball.
But I've seen 2 years of Burleson, and I know what that is.
But Burleson was. To be
does he though? Because for half of the season last year he was bad.
It was at the end of the season where it was the first time being a major leaguer. That's a guy that I want to experiment more with to see what he's got. Again, Lars Nootbaar, for me, you're right. He's 15-20% above league average, but for 5 straight years I either lose him for injury or we go through slumps with him. And Burleson may go through the slumps as well. It's kind of why I look at that left field position as, look, I think I know what Burleson is. I think I know what Nootbaar is.
I don't feel like I know what either of them are. I think I know. I have a better idea on Nootbaar, and the thing where maybe we disagree a little bit on this, Alex, and I'm not saying that either of us is right or wrong. I don't know how to do this. It's a really tough spot. With Newt, I think he's a really good player, and that's it. Like, there's not more there. He's not going to be the star that we thought. He's just a really good player that does something at an elite level, and that thing is getting on base. And right now he's going through a horrible spell of that. He's not getting on base lately, and it does not allow you to put him up at the top of the order at a minimum. Like, he cannot be your leadoff hitter right now. But even through this horrible slump that he's going through, he's getting on base 33% of the time, man, for the season. Last year, and you mentioned how he has some inconsistencies. Sure, but those are reflected by the end-of-season numbers because those inconsistencies are added in there. He's been 25%, 15%, and 11% above league average in his full seasons that he's been at the big league level. That's really good, man. That is a player that you want in your lineup every day. In fact, those numbers right now on the Cardinals would rank like 3rd or 4th on the team in terms of overall OPS plus, behind only Ivan Herrera, Brendan Donovan, and Thomas Sajaci, who isn't here. So, like, I don't know, man. That's a guy that I want in my lineup regularly, but I do agree with you. You've got to get Alec Burleson in there. But how do you do that? Well, it has to come at the expense of Jordan Walker. If you want Newt in there, it has to come at the expense of Jordan Walker or Victor Scott.
Or you go to what they don't want to do, which is Herrera's behind home plate 2 out of every 3 games. Because now I just opened up the DH spot for Burleson. So now I've created runway for Burley. I've created runway for Newt by locking him in left. And I've created runway for Walker in right field. But when you continue to say, hey, we believe in Pages is our best defensive catcher, and I'm not disputing that he is.
Absolutely.
But that feels more like a win now move than it is a runway move, in my opinion.
Maybe. Probably, yeah. I agree with you, and this is where they're trying to balance both, and we might be getting to that point where it's like, I don't know that you can balance both.
Yeah.
I think you kind of have to choose your path and decide. And the hard part here is choosing the path doesn't necessarily mean coming to the same conclusions that we just did, because you guys had the same thing. You had the same idea of, like, it's got to be about runway, and came to 2 different conclusions on what that means. You said Burleson, Alex, and you said Nootbaar. So that's where things get really dicey, is trying to choose, even if that path is this. Okay, what does that mean now? Who are the guys that we go with for that? If you're trying to win right now, I could understand the argument for Gorman should be in the lineup every day. But if you do that, pushes Donovan to the outfield, and okay, now who's the other outfielder? Is it Burleson? Is it Nootbaar? Is it Walker? Who's the one that helps us the most? Should Scott be in center field if we're trying to win right now? I don't know, man. These are tough choices that they have to make on an everyday basis. Coming up next, MLB viewership is up. So why aren't people interested in the TV package? T-Bone will explain next year on BK and Ferrario.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals play 2 today as they take on the Chicago White Sox. 1:10 will be first pitch for Game 1. Eric Fedde will be on the mound for St. Louis. Game 2 will follow right after that, and Michael McGreevy, who will serve as the 27th man for the doubleheader today, will get the start for St. Louis. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, Game 6 of the NBA Finals as the Oklahoma City Thunder look to close out the Indiana Pacers. Well, pregame coverage starting at 6:30 with tip-off at 7:30. This portion of our update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. SEMALondoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Audible! Omaha! So is Connor McDavid really going to leave?
T-Bone is so upset now. He wanted to talk MLB viewership.
I know, we'll get to that in the 1 o'clock hour. Alex, is Connor McDavid really going to leave? He's having his end-of-season press conference right now, and he's been asked about his contract status. He's been asked about when he's going to make a decision on his future, and it's basically been give me some time. I need to talk to my family. I got to make the decision that's best for me and my family. And it's some version of that over and over and over again for 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, somebody asked him about his priorities, and he said, obviously, it's winning the Stanley Cup. But he said, if Edmonton is the spot where I could win multiple Stanley Cups, and I'm fine signing an extension, but my priority is winning.
Did anybody follow up with, Trent Frederick's getting like an 8-year extension,
Yeah,
right?
you know that your team's just handing out 8-year no-move contracts to fourth-line wingers, right?
Can you imagine, by the way, real quick on that before you keep going, can you imagine if he decides I want to go elsewhere and they have signed this deal with Trent Frederick? And they're like, mother.
And when McDavid gets to his new place, he's like, yeah, when they gave Trent Frederick an 8-year contract, I was like, nope, out on this place.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know if he's leaving. Frankly, I don't even think he knows if he's leaving. If I was in Edmonton, though, I would be panicking. Like, McDavid played this thing perfectly. To the uncertainty of now you go to the table with Edmonton and be like, look, you need to prove to me that you were going to put together a winning team. If you're him and you're competitive and you're compared to the next Wayne Gretzky, and honestly, you put up points at a redonkulous pace that if you play until you're 40, who knows what it could look like. None of that matters unless you win a Stanley Cup.
Correct.
And if you stay in Edmonton and this team, which they have a knack for, as we're seeing, handing out contracts that put their team in a really bad spot, yeah, can absolutely see a scenario where he looks at this and says, I'm not signing a contract. You got 1 year to prove to me that we can win a Stanley Cup. And if not, see ya.
And this is what I said yesterday. If I'm in his shoes, that's exactly what I would do.
And if I'm Edmonton, I panic.
Here's the other. I agree. I don't really know what the move is there.
I don't know. You got to decide what's the best looking panic move: waiting and holding and hoping you win a Stanley Cup and then losing them for nothing, or trading them and getting something back and being the guy that traded Connor McDavid.
I would hold on. I said this yesterday. I will reiterate it again today. I would hold on for dear life and understand, hey, if he leaves, we're bleeped. But at least we have Draisaitl. Like,
yeah, but Draisaitl's is going to want out really soon after.
Guess what? You're under contracts. So you're going to be here.
That's the nice part. At least you got Draisaitl locked up for long term.
And the idiot signed a no move too.
Yeah. You're here. You're stuck. Like, that's cool that you want to go with your buddy McDavid and you want to leave here. Nope, not happening. We're not trading you. You can sit out if you want, and you don't have to play hockey games. But you're going to be here for at least the foreseeable future. If I'm them, I'm just Connor. If you don't feel like you can make a decision right now on whether or not you can re-sign with us, that's totally fine. I want you to know you're not going anywhere. You will be a Edmonton Oiler in the upcoming season, and then you can reassess. You can take the next, calendar year to decide what your plans are, but we are not going to get full return on you. We can't. It's impossible. Nobody does. In the history of these superstar deals, I don't know if you guys have one that immediately comes to mind, but I can't think of many or any in which the team that dealt that player ended up getting something of real significance in return. So, yeah, I'm waiting, and the asset that I get, quote unquote, will be the cap space, and then I just start over with Draisaitl as the centerpiece.
I mean, I totally hear you, and that's the side that I find myself leaning on. But, I mean, the best example I could come up with is what we just saw, where they traded Rantanen and got Natchez back. But now Natchez is a problem, and you don't know if he's back. But Natchez, in terms of point production, it's like, hey, we got something. That's
cool.
A point per game player.
Nice second-line winger.
Dude, that might be the best thing to keep Edmonton afloat. Like, you might have to deal him so that you can get at least 1 or 2 assets back, and try and build depth versus two guys to keep Draisaitl happy.
Maybe, or I could just go to market next year and sign the equivalent of that guy.
You're going to overpay for him, though.
Sure.
And then you're going to be in the same spot that you're in, where you're giving a lot of money to one guy, and now you can't build together a right roster.
Yeah, but I like Natchez is going to get what, $8 million, something like that.
In this market, 10.
Okay. I can find other avenues to find that kind of a player.
I get
if that's the like, oh boy, they got Martin Natchez.
No.
I can't do that. I can't willingly give up on a potential Stanley Cup season this upcoming year.
But what if it's
acquire?
What if it's not
Martin Natchez?
What if you get bounced in the second round?
Then I tried and we failed.
What if you make the move for a goaltender and that goaltender pans out to be a disaster? You lose in the second round and McDavid's like, no, man.
Then it's sports.
Wouldn't you rather have had Natchez rather than no McDavid? And
I would rather try.
I think I'd rather
because that route, Alex. What is the likelihood that route gets me a cup either? The one that you're talking about.
Both are. Very little.
And the route that I'm trying to take either over the last 2 seasons has amounted to us getting to at least Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final.
But your route also means I'm chasing my tail when he's gone, and I might not even make the playoffs next year.
Maybe that's got to be on me then. If I'm in the gym, like putting ourselves in the GM shoes, if I try this and I push to try to win a cup with Connor McDavid in this 1-year window that we have, and then he leaves, and I'm stuck with, all right, I got to build a roster around Leon Draisaitl. Do you know how many teams would trade places with me? Half of the league would be like, I would gladly take over the situation that you're currently in because you still have a superstar to build around, and now let's start it back up, right? Maybe it's going to be a 3-year process for us to get to that place, and we're not going to be all in the same way that we have been with Connor McDavid. Maybe that's a good thing for the organization long term, honestly. But for right now, you asked what happens if we lose in the second round. What happens is we go home and we're all furious, and we can go to sleep and we can be on our deathbeds and we can say we tried. We at least tried to get this thing done. And if I willingly said, no, I'm going to trade him for 60 cents on the dollar, I would probably have some regrets about that. I would live to be like, you know what?
I think you're going to have regrets with either decision.
Unless you win.
Yeah.
Which
you're
I
rolling
don't
the
think
dice.
Absolutely. You're rolling the dice no matter what. But the upside to winning the cup next year is so much in that market especially that I cannot just take that off of the table. Yeah. You know, again, over the last 2 seasons, with all of their failures and all of their deficiencies as a team, and there are many, they have reached at least Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals each of the last 2 years against a team that we just saw ranked by The Athletic as the second best of the last 20 years. There's no guarantee Florida's as good next year. They might be, but maybe they deal with injuries. Maybe Bobrovsky gets hurt, and suddenly they're not the same team next year in the playoffs, and they don't even reach the Stanley Cup Final. And they're going up against Carolina, and now they win it, and they're hoisting the cup overhead, and Connor McDavid on that moment says, I'm signing here for 8 years, can't wait to spend my entire career in Edmonton. That is a range of outcomes that is very realistic. That's what I've got to try.
Yeah, I think they are in such a unique spot because of what you said with Draisaitl, right? Because like when you were Calgary, and when Calgary, now it's not McDavid, it's no McJesus, but they had Matthew Tkachuk, Johnny Hockey, Johnny Gaudreau at the time, and Gaudreau was the first one that was coming up on the contract extension, and they said, we're running it back. Now, what made it tough for them is they didn't have Tkachuk under contract. I think because you have Draisaitl and the way you laid it out, I think it's perfect because you can build a team around Draisaitl, and you've got him locked up. If he was on like a 1-year deal and he was expiring like the year after McDavid, it's a little tougher. If you don't have Leon Draisaitl, it's a little tougher. They are in the unique situation to where if they do lose Connor McDavid, they've still got a top 10 player on their roster that they can continue to build around.
Top 3.
Yeah, top 10 was
maybe number 1. Like, he may have been the best player in the league last year in Leon Draisaitl. The other thing that I wanted to ask you, Alex, as a follow-up on this, and we'll get to the juncture on the other side, if they took your path, they said, all right, if Connor McDavid decides that he's not going to be here long term, we've got to make a move. Where would he want to go? Because this is the other thing that's really difficult is finding the spot where you can go and land and make $14+ million on an annual basis, and the team's still great around you.
Yeah.
You can't just go somewhere. You have to find the landing spot where it is very clearly a cup contender the moment that you walk through the door. So who is that team? I would imagine Edmonton ain't exactly like thrilled to send him to another Pacific Division team.
Florida's got $19 million in cap space.
Dude,
that would be awesome.
No chance they would do that.
I mean, honestly,
Dallas?
No, I don't. Vegas is the first one that comes to mind.
But if you're Edmonton, I'm not sending you to Vegas.
Unless I get Jack Eichel in return.
Okay.
Because Eichel's going to be up for free agency the same time
But isn't
McDavid
Eichel
is.
in a no move?
I have no idea.
I think he's got a no move, if I'm not mistaken.
But I mean,
That's the other tough part too, is when you do make that kind of a move.
I mean,
who the hell wants? No offense, Edmonton.
I always
who the hell
look at
wants to
where
go to Edmonton.
Yeah, Eichel has a no move.
I always
he's
look at
got
where
1 year left on his deal. He's not re-signing in Edmonton.
I always look at where guys are from and who their significant other is from, and his wife's from Toronto.
But they have no moves on everybody too.
Yeah,
and those players aren't accepting a deal to Edmonton.
I know. I mean, unless you trade a Matthew Nyes.
That could be one. And but they don't have the money then to make it work.
Well, I mean, they do. If you want to allocate $14 million because you're not putting $8 million towards Nyes. You can get $14 million for McDavid, $15 million for McDavid, and say, cool, we got McDavid and Matthews, and we'll just go back to being top heavy.
But if you're him, isn't that just signing up for what you've already done?
Also, if you're him, do you really want to go to another media frenzy place? Sometimes I wonder. So. Yeah, sometimes I wonder if you're that guy that's just I think Marner. There's a real shot he goes somewhere where he doesn't have to talk to the media that much.
Utah,
probably.
If you're Dallas, would you trade Wyatt Johnston and Jason Robertson for Connor McDavid?
Yes. Yeah. People keep throwing in these trade scenarios. Would you trade this guy off the blue? Yes.
The reason that I asked that seems semi-realistic.
Yeah. But
that's actually a great package if you're Edmonton. Yeah, and they don't have no move protection. Both of them are in their entry-level deals or bridge deals or whatever. And you could sign Jason Robertson to a massive extension long-term. And now I've got Leon Draisaitl and Wyatt Johnston down the middle. I've got Jason Robertson as a really good winger for my team, making big-time money. I've just repurposed that money that I was otherwise had earmarked for Connor McDavid. I wouldn't do it, but that at least makes sense to me.
This is why I like, as a front office, you have to have these conversations. If there's a package out there that could get us anywhere close to it, do you consider it? A lot of people on the text line, when you ask any comparables with this one, they bring up Eric Lindros when he was drafted first overall by Quebec, traded to Philadelphia for Peter Forsberg and multiple guys.
I remember that deal.
Yeah, you do. Of course you do. Back in the good old 80s and 90s. But, I mean, that trade did benefit the Colorado Avalanche when they had an Eric Lindros. But, again, these don't happen. And if I'm Edmonton, I am doing everything possible to not get rid of McDavid. But the hard part with all of this is, if he wants to see you be competitive and find ways to make your team better, I don't know how you do it if you're Edmonton. You don't have money to spend in free agency, some money to spend in free agency. You don't have any draft capital. You have zero prospects in your minor league system. You're not making trades or signings to better your team.
I just look around the NHL, and I think to myself,
the Blues should trade for McDavid. Yeah. Me too, man.
Where is Leon Draisaitl going? Where he's going to be in a better situation than what he has right now in Edmonton, and it's a guarantee that that's the case.
You mean McDavid? You said Draisaitl.
Yes, McDavid is going to have a better situation, better situation elsewhere than what he currently has in Edmonton, and where the package makes sense for Edmonton to do it. I think Dallas, to me, is the only one that I can think of that makes sense, and it's because they have those two young stars, no pun intended, with
McDavid and Rantanen,
without any trade protection on them. And you have the cap because you already have those two players, and they equal out. They actually make a little less next year to what Connor McDavid is going to make under the cap. So
there's not teams that have the money that he would want to go to that has a chance to win.
Imagine if Dallas was able to acquire Connor McDavid after acquiring Mikko Rantanen.
I think I was 5 when Gretzky was traded, 6 when Gretzky was traded to St. Louis. I just remember my dad being very excited. So, yeah, I can imagine what it would be like in Dallas. I can also imagine what it would be like for teams in the Central Division. Like, you got to be kidding me, man.
They would be the Florida Panthers of the West. Not the same style, but that level of how in the world are we going to beat them?
I just as much as I believe that there's no scenario where you trade Connor McDavid, man, there is a scenario, because if you're Edmonton, you don't want to go back into what the previous 10 years were prior to Connor McDavid.
I don't think that's possible because you have Leon Draisaitl. I think he boosts your floor to the point where you're not going to be that team anymore. But I get it, man. It's a scary place to be in where you have this kind of uncertainty looming. It requires so many different moving parts to move that guy. Mm-hmm. Requires him to agree to the deal where he wants to go. It requires you to find the exact pieces coming back in return that would allow for that deal to make sense for the team as well. And then it requires the contracts negotiations to take place in that next spot. And all of this has to happen in like the next month. So it's tough, man. It's not an easy thing to do. All right, with Alex and T-Bone on BK, we've had some TMA style of clock management.
We'll probably
today.
break 4 minutes early.
I do apologize for that. That's
What the
on
hell?
me.
I'm over here
Nobody
working
else.
my
T-Bone's
butt
panicking.
off.
Coming up next, T-Bone wanted to talk about Major League Baseball viewership. We'll do that next here on 101 ESPN. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We're going to get to T-Bone's topic here in just a moment from the 314. Guys, Robertson, Johnston, Harley, and 2 firsts for McDavid, who says no. Alex, this sounds crazy. I think Dallas?
Kind of. But if you're Dallas, man, I don't know if I'd say no. It's first, who cares? Like, Robertson's probably...
What an explanation.
Well,
who cares?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Dallas, I'm in win now mode. I don't care. Robertson might be gone in a year.
The honest answer is the cap. The Edmonton, shockingly enough, couldn't afford that.
Probably. The Wyatt Johnson, I'm getting McDavid. Like, my team's McDavid, McKinnon, Heiskanen, and Ottinger. I've got all the pieces to win. It's just my depth looks terrible right now.
Yeah, I think Dallas says no because who are they competing against? Like, Connor McDavid gets to handpick his next team, and he'll probably do so at least somewhat hand-in-hand with the Edmonton Oilers, where they could canvass the league and see, okay, here are the teams that actually have a requisite offer to give us. Pick your favorite among them. Yeah. And Dallas probably has the best offer possible. And I think all it would require is Robertson and Johnston. So maybe they throw in a pick because they're like, I guess if we're getting Connor McDavid, we'll throw in a first-round pick.
You always get the first-round picks in those.
But
if I'm Dallas,
I don't think you need to include Thomas Harley.
If I'm Dallas, I don't know if I mean right now until you get one of them, Robertson or Johnston. And then if you're Edmonton, you say no unless you have to trade them.
I think you have to do that to make it work cap-wise if you're the Stars.
Probably 15 mil. Yeah, you're right.
I guess you could replace one of them with Harley. That's this, but I'm probably
throw in a bunch of other like Mason Marchman and a couple of the other guys that are making money. But at that point, Edmonton's like, nah, screw it.
Exactly.
We stick with McDavid.
The whole reason that you make the deal is Robertson and Johnston
either
as
way
pieces for the deal.
This is going to be soap opera television moving forward with the Edmonton Oilers, and I can't wait. I got my popcorn ready.
I would be curious about who you think the best Blues offer would be, but we'll set that aside for just a moment.
We'll save that for tomorrow, T-Bone. I think we'll have a great conversation over that tomorrow.
We got to talk about Major League Baseball viewership. T-Bone, what's going on with it?
Yeah, so guys, Major League Baseball, they found an interesting article here where MLB is off to its best start in years when it comes to viewership, as viewership is up across all its major national TV packages, led by ESPN, where ratings are up 22%. TBS and Fox
22%?
TBS and Fox have scored 16% and 10% lifts, and this is on top of game attendance, which hit a 7-year high in 2024 and is currently up this year. Yet Major League Baseball seems to be struggling to find somebody to take the package that ESPN backed out of, which was at $550 million. And Major League Baseball's having trouble coming up with how do we make up that money that's going to be lost at the end of the year.
Man, that's really interesting. I would imagine a lot of this is because the big markets are good this season for the most part. Like, the Dodgers are very good right now, as we know. The Yankees are good and came into the season with expectations. San Diego has become one of these markets where, like, they get huge support. Did you know they're second in the league in attendance this year?
That checks out.
That's crazy. San Diego has become St. Louis. Yeah. Like, they flipped in terms of the market, the size of the markets, and then how they're able to sustain a larger payroll.
If you're San Diego, I mean, what else you got to compete? What else you watching? Like, we've got a great product.
San Diego, I can find a lot of things to do, buddy.
No, I mean, I get that, but I've got a great product in the evening, and it's exciting to watch, so why wouldn't you?
No doubt.
It's the same reason people in St. Louis at the summertime.
I'm in total agreement with you. I would just say,
I didn't appreciate it.
I love this city. This is my home. I want to say that on the front end.
No, he doesn't.
The number of options of things to do in St. Louis in the summer compared to things to do in San Diego in the summer, it is a little bit of a difference there.
Like what, man? At some point, you just get sick of the beach.
Amen.
But
been there,
I'm not sure that's true.
It's like the Arch. Same thing. You see it once, it's like, all right, cool.
Feel that way?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've always felt that way about the Arch.
That's why so many people take vacations to see the Arch, just like they do for the beach.
You don't do it a lot, right? You just go once, and you're like, that was enough. Let's go to another beach.
What do you think explains this, though? Because, like, attendance, that makes sense. The big markets, this is the top 10 in attendance this year. Dodgers, Padres, Yankees, Phillies, Mets, Atlanta, Chicago, Cubs, San Francisco, Boston, LA Angels, surprisingly enough. Those teams, other than the Angels, again, weird, are all very good. They're all big markets. You expect them to be up there. The ratings, what do you think could be driving that? Is this a year where you feel like there are a lot of storylines nationally? Are there more stars than there have been in the past? I would be curious to hear just theories on why Major League Baseball's ratings would be up this season compared to previous years. I don't know.
I think they put some of the better teams more on. Like if you're watching the Dodgers, right? That it feels like the Dodgers are on.
Dodgers and Yankees are always
Dodgers
there.
and Yankees are on Sunday Night Baseball a lot, and that goes to your big market point, which is, and they've got stars like Aaron Judge. People want to watch what he's doing. Shohei Ohtani. People want to watch what he's doing. I think that's the biggest factor that's driving up those national numbers because I feel like they're the only teams I see. And Philly's on there a lot too. But Philly, again, to your point, a very good team. I can't think of a Sunday night game yet this year where I've been like, oh, I can't believe I'm watching this team that's mediocre that's on Sunday Night Baseball right now.
Unless they're going up against one of those teams that you just referenced.
Exactly.
I guess that's fair. So here it is. I've finally found this schedule. Sunday Night Baseball schedule. This is through early July. So you got the Padres on there. You got the Red Sox on there. The Dodgers versus the Cubs. San Diego again. The Cubs/Phillies. LA. Phillies. The Mets. The Dodgers versus the Phillies. Oh, the Mets were versus the Yankees. Yankees versus the Dodgers. Yeah, and then most recently, coming up this weekend, the Mets versus the Phillies. So, yeah, they basically just said, hey, we're just going to get a bunch of New York, San Diego, and Philadelphia games.
Yeah.
In LA, the Dodgers as well.
There's your recipe for it. I mean, I don't know any other theories that would fall into this because to me, it's the same stars. Like I know Shohei's pitching now, but that was just recently. Judge has been here. Like
the Fox schedule is up too, though, right?
I don't know where Fox is on their
Didn't
deal.
you say that? No,
ESPN's the one that's coming out.
I should clarify. Not that they're like
their
due
viewership's
for
up. Yeah, they're up by 16%, I think is what the number was. But the other one, TBS, is up. Fox is up 10%. TBS is up 16%.
So they're not all showing these teams.
No.
Is it just because it's the only thing to do?
But that didn't change from 2024.
Yeah. And I don't think sports betting is like spiking because of baseball. Like that's typically not the one that gets the best return.
And that's been around in most of the states that have legalized sports betting right now have had legalized sports betting. I can't explain this. I don't know why this would be the case, but I do find the game to be in a really good spot right now. Like when I'm watching it, the viewing experience at home right now is as good as it's been in a really long time.
Maybe it's because it's faster.
That's what I'm saying. Like with the incorporation of the pitch clock, I think has been a huge boost. I think the ball's in play a little bit more now than it has been in the past. I saw an article the other day, T-Bone, we were listening to a podcast about this as well. Starting pitchers are staying in games longer. And like, if you look at the innings pitched so far this year, same point last year, it's like double the number of starters that have reached a certain threshold that would qualify for the ERA title. So maybe there's something to that as well. I don't know.
See, I agree that I feel like the game itself, the product itself is in a good place. But then I hear about their financials and go, wait, something's off here, right? Because like, I find, and when I saw this at the time, I went, oh my gosh, we need a new commissioner. But MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred initially responded when ESPN was the one that opted out of this deal by saying, well, ESPN's a shrinking platform, only to later concede and say, yeah, we liked that deal we had because they're not going to get the $550 million price tag that was the Sunday night package, all the wild card playoff games, the MLB Home Run Derby, and I think there was one other thing that was in there as well. It might be when they do the overseas international games, ESPN gets one of those games. They can't get anybody to really get even close to that. And then on top of that, you talk about what they're doing with their regional television deals. They have no real answer coming in the future on that one. Major League Baseball feels like they're they're just floating in the wind right now with no answers.
And it's weird because it is, I mean, if you are a TV provider, right, baseball is amazing because they provide all of the inventory for an entire summer where there is, to Alex's point, almost nothing happening across like the other sports worlds, right? You have something almost every single night. And so that's really nice. And you get good numbers locally. Now, nationally, there have been times where it's not great, but it's up, clearly, in a pretty significant way. So that's a positive. I don't understand why there are so few bidders for this. I would think they would have more opportunities out there. But I guess maybe some of this, like if you're Fox, for example, like if you're a local Fox affiliate here in St. Louis, right? I don't want to kick off my primetime TV opportunities to put the Cardinals on every single night. That loses me money because now instead of appealing to, this wide swath of audience that watches like the 75th sequel to NCIS, I have to put on Cardinals baseball every night during the summer. I guess that is the only reason.
The local one, I don't really know what the answer is. What I find interesting is this national package they can't sell and not even get close to that. I wonder if it's because, and this is just a tinfoil here, I mean, that's all we can really do here, is most of these big markets or these big television, whatever you want to call them, stations, NBC, ESPN, are spending all of their bigger bucks on the bigger products. NBA, NBC just signed a multi-billion-dollar deal for that.
Could it also be the threat of a lockout?
I think that hurts it too. Because, I mean, like, if you're anybody that's watched this, you know they're not playing spring training most of it, and then who knows about the regular season going into at the end of next year.
I think a lot of it is because, like, regular season baseball is just a local sport. When do you ever see baseball on a national level talked about on, like, Fox Sports 1, ESPN? I know that's not the greatest representation of things, but, guys, they're talking about things for a reason. It's because what they are talking about, based upon their own research, it will draw clicks, it will draw viewership, it will draw engagement. When they talk about baseball, they can hear the dials clicking out because nationally, like, many people here in St. Louis care about baseball in a way that people in Kansas City or people in Nashville simply do not, right? Like, and I'm talking about on a national viewpoint. People here in St. Louis care about what's happening with the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Padres and all of these different things. That's not normal. That is very unique to this specific market. So I think some of it is that, T-Bone. Like, there's not the same draw nationally. But the ratings then would tell you a different story. And, like, the ratings for the NBA are going in the opposite direction. The ratings for the NHL have trended a little bit down this year during the Stanley Cup Finals, certainly. I don't know. It's a really weird thing where it almost feels as though the tail is wagging the dog in some of these situations, instead of us following where the viewership is going. I don't know.
I really wonder if it's because of just the landscape of baseball, to where you don't know what it's going to look like in a couple of years, the uncertainty of the lockout, the controversy between the players and the owners, and then with the Manfred job. Like, it just seems like it's in a weird spot to where do you want to invest $550 million for something that I don't know if it's going to be there next year.
Coming up next, we'll play a game of Believe It or Not. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You give us a scenario. We'll tell you if we are believing it or not here on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends out at Rhino Shield. Look, we're getting to that hot season where the sun is beating down. It's 100 degrees outside, which means that sun is beating down on the exterior of your home. And if you have just common paint, boy, that sun is going to deteriorate it over and over and over. Just like with the rain, it washes it away, and then the house starts to look old. You start to get those rust stains. The paint starts peeling off, and you're thinking, now I need to do this again. It's why you need to call Rhino Shield, because you can set it and forget it with Rhino Shield's work. They use a ceramic coating that sticks 8 to 10 times thicker than any paint that you're going to buy over the counter at a hardware store. It's engineered to outlast paint. It's 100% waterproof. It deflects 90% of the UV rays, which, by the way, you save some money on your energy bills because of all of that. And it's all backed by a 25-year transferable warranty. I used Rhino Shield on my house back in 2020. My house looks brand new still to this day. Give Darren a call today. Tell him Alex Ferrario sent you, and get the coating of a Rhino on your home or business. 877-25-RHINO, 877-25RHINO.com.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
free, flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
Believe it or not, it's just me.
I think my wings are getting a little more mobile with my Pilates.
Oh. Did you work on that?
Yeah.
Did you request that specifically?
This is
I need to
actually
get
a
better with-
specific move that we went through last week.
BK's like, I got to work on this.
This guy's
And the lady
inability to get
said, well,
yoked.
why is that? And he went, I do it on air for a song.
Yeah. It's part of my job,
For a
actually.
song.
She was like, what? No follow-up questions,
checks
please.
out. That checks out.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for Believe It or Not. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are believing it or not here in BK and Ferrario. Alex, I will ask you the question that we have been dancing around for about 3 months now. Believe it or not, Sam Bennett will play for a team other than Florida for the upcoming season.
I'm going to say not believe it. I think he's playing with the Panthers. I think when it comes to the state income tax and what the Panthers actually can afford, cap wages, put this out yesterday on Twitter, basically looking at it as keeping Bennett and keeping Ekblad. You could do it, Ekblad 7.8 mil, Bennett 8 mil, and they'd still have like $1 million to work with.
That's so annoying.
I don't think Sam Bennett's going to go anywhere. I think if you're Sam Bennett, this is the best spot to be in.
Yeah, I'm not believing this. I think he's going to stay with Florida. I don't see him leaving. I see him signing the contract extension. And I think what gets interesting to our conversation earlier about, like, boy, I can't believe Toronto's blowing this up. They just ran into a freaking buzzsaw. How much worse is Florida if they just bring back Bennett and lose Ekblad? I think that's where an interesting conversation has to happen for teams in the East and potentially teams in the West if you think they can also get back to the Stanley Cup.
It's a conversation that I find so fascinating because how do you value a team that can go deeper? Do you need to be better defensively or better down the middle?
And which one provides more for that? Sam Bennett, who can help you defensively with the forecheck, because one of the best ways to be good at defense is to not be in your own end. The best way to do that is with a devastating forecheck that doesn't allow the opposition to get in your end, right? So it's not just defensemen that can help you in that regard.
Yep.
I am not believing this either. I do think he ends up back in Florida. I can't imagine a guy that just had that much success on that specific line with a battered and bruised and broken version of Matthew Tkachuk. Can't imagine he's going to want to leave when he could potentially become, I know this sounds crazy, a hockey Hall of Famer based upon his playoff success alone if he continues to stay in that market. So I'm not believing this. Alex?
Guys, let's continue the Oilers conversation. Believe it or not, McDavid and Draisaitl will not win a cup as a member of the Edmonton Oilers.
So much goes into this.
And that's why I chose it.
I'm going to say not. When you are that good and you are paired with another guy that is that good, I believe that eventually you'll break through. I know they haven't yet, but they've made it there back-to-back years. They were so freaking close last season. And this year they weren't as close.
I was going to say, that's not a good thing, right? When you were closer last season than this season?
No, but it also speaks to how great Florida was. I think sometimes we do this thing where, like, to prop somebody else out, we have to pull somebody else down. No, dude, I think Florida was just that good this year. I think they were a special team.
I prefer to pull people down.
Edmonton ran into a buzzsaw, so I'm going to say they eventually get it
The
done.
reason I asked this before you answer it, T-Bone, Myrtle had his mailbag on the Maple Leafs, and he told one of the answers that he believes that the winning window for the Maple Leafs is the next 2 years, and then things start to get really difficult. And if the winning window is the next 2 years for the Maple Leafs, how long
Toronto?
how long of a winning window is it for Edmonton?
Why does he think that?
Because he said things can change with this team. You're already talking about Marner. Matthews is getting older. You don't know what Matthews' uncertainty looks like. Like, there's a lot of uncertainty in the next couple of years.
I didn't think about Matthews, and he's got a contract coming up, right?
2 years from now, I think.
There's your window.
Yeah, and I mean, Tavares is getting older. You're moving on from Marner. Your defense is all locked in, getting older. Like, you don't have much longer to win in this window if you're Toronto.
That's right.
I would say not believe it because I still think I'm with you. I think McDavid and Draisaitl can win a cup. I also think McDavid's ultimately going to resign. I think the Oilers picked the worst time to have a presser, like 24 hours after losing in Game 6. But
Don't really have much.
Yeah, I was gonna
I
say,
get it. I get
off-season,
it.
baby.
But, like, come on. Like, that guy's still not over losing to the Stanley Cup. Of course he's going to be a little hectic and look like he saw a puppy get kicked or something. But I ultimately think he resigns. I do think they can win a cup with him. I agree with you. I think at some point they get over the hump. And at some point you're not going to run into the Panthers. And now maybe another team comes along and builds something just as good. But, like, to me, it feels like, and it's a little different because they're in opposite conference, unlike this example I'm about to bring up, it feels like when I watch Paul George run into LeBron in the Big Three in Miami all the time, it was like, oh, great. Well, okay, of course we're going to lose this series. It's the Big Three for crying out loud.
Simone?
Guys, believe it or not, of the 4 guys that we've talked about trying to get playing time for the Cardinals, Lars Nootbaar, Jordan Walker, Alec Burleson, Nolan Gorman. Over the next month, Jordan Walker will finish will have the fewest at-bats of those 4.
Not Gorman will.
Agreed. Yeah, I think Gorman's the one that they've made their decision on. The other 3, I think, is trying to find playing time for him.
If Gorman didn't get more opportunity after this stretch, it just ain't happening.
I just saw him strike out on 3 straight fastballs that he couldn't touch.
That's not going to help.
The slump's coming.
I would also add this. I think they're just clearly committed to Brendan Donovan as their second baseman. And I find that to be fascinating for a lot of different reasons.
Because you got 2 other guys that can only play second base.
Oh, and beyond that, dude, where's J.J. Weatherholt going to play?
Well, that's who I was thinking of. So JC and Weatherholt.
Yeah, and Gorman right now.
Well, I think Gorman's a lost cause at that point.
Possibly, but that to me is a really interesting development. If they truly view Brendan Donovan as this is a second baseman, I don't know what that means long term, but it's really interesting.
It's kind of why the Lars Nootbaar thing, I think I'm swaying in the decision of he's not your left fielder because I think that might be Brendan Donovan.
But if Brendan Donovan is your second baseman...
Well, what I mean for the long term. I don't know if Donovan's your everyday second baseman.
But they clearly view him as that. They view him as a great defensive second baseman. Yeah. And I think they think he can stay healthier at second than if he's playing in the outfield. So if they view him that way, and they want to keep him here long term, and I think they do, shouldn't you be talking to like Thomas and JC about playing the outfield? Shouldn't you be talking to J.J. Weatherholt about, hey, like regular opportunities at third base?
That's what I was just about to say. I wonder if you'll start to see him take the hot corner.
Maybe. They haven't done that in the past. They've been really bad
until
about
they get
that.
called up, and they decide to switch it.
These are the kinds of things that if you're in the Cardinals' shoes right now, you should be thinking about is long-term planning. All right, sorry. Gorman.
Yeah, I think
not believe it. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah, I think not believe it. I am fascinated to know, though, over like the next 3 weeks to a month, if those 4 will be pretty similar within at-bats, or if you'll see 2 really emerge and they just go with that. Now, when I say that, that could mean where Walker just doesn't hit, and then they go to 2 guys like Burleson and Nootbaar.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. Let's get to these from the text line. Guys, believe it or not, Joel Hofer will be traded in a package for a second-line center or a right-handed defenseman. I asked Donnie Fandango about this earlier today.
After you traded Dvorsky in the office, but yeah.
Well, he was a part of that deal.
Yeah.
It's Dvorsky,
We're technically not supposed to bring that up, but he throws us under the bus, so why not, right?
And a first-round pick for an unnamed second-line center that I don't know who it is.
No, really, it was sign Tavares and then just trade Dvorsky. Like, oh, okay, cool, man. Don't know what that was for. I want to say not believe this. I mean, he is probably one of your best assets if you want to give up something that doesn't really hurt your main team to go get a centerman, but then you're playing the game of who is my backup goaltender to at least bridge the gap until Colton Ellis. But I'm going to say not believe this. I do think it's going to be realistic that teams talk about an offer sheet for him, which that's when I find it fascinating.
I'm not going to believe this. I don't think they're trading Joel Hofer in a package because I just don't think there's something out there that significantly upgrades you to where you give up on your backup, not give up, but you move on and trade your backup goalie, and then you're like stuck in the wind. Because I would not trust Colton Ellis to come in and be your backup for 30+ games, and I don't know if I really want to go to the free agent market to go find that backup.
Can I read you some of the names on the free agent market?
It's kind of weird that they haven't re-signed him yet, right?
I could argue it's also a little weird they haven't re-signed Foxa yet, because now that you're seeing the center market, if I'm Fox's agent, I'm like, man,
at least that one. If I'm in Army's shoes, like, A, I've got a potential replacement internally, and B, I don't think he's going to break the bank.
Yeah. Well, I also thought Trent Frederick wasn't going to either.
They typically get their RFAs done before this, right? Am I wrong on that?
No, they've gone to arbitration with guys in the past. Now, when you go to arbitration with Doug Armstrong, that's typically not good because those guys are more times than not traded away. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine you're waiting to see what the landscape looks like in terms of other teams before that. But here are the goaltenders. You tell me if any of these are intriguing to you over Joel.
My answer is no. I don't need to hear them. But
okay, cool. No, segment over. Next one.
Jake Allen and then
Ville Husso.
Bladder.
Yeah, Georgiev.
Oh, we can have Husso back?
Dan Vladar. Ilya
I
Samsonov.
actually like Vladar, but I think somebody's going to sign him to be like a 1B.
Yeah, he's going to be making probably like north of $4.5 million. And Capo Kakinen,
Yeah, I'm good.
Arvid Soderblom, just keep over.
Believe it or not, Arch Manning will be a Colt.
Well, the Colts are going to be really bad this year.
Lenore Sellers is a redshirt freshman, right? Because he's the guy that if I am tanking, I would want. Yeah, he's a redshirt freshman, so he'll be eligible next year. I think Lenore Sellers, to me, will be the number 1 overall selection in next year's draft. So that would put Arch at best number 2.
Somebody's going name recognition, though. He might go number 1.
That screams Colts.
Yeah, that does scream Colts. You want good PR, that's how.
Giants will be really bad.
They've got their
Browns will be really bad. Giants have their quarterback?
Well, I assume. They took Dart in the first round. I assume they're going to give him runway.
God, I forgot that.
I think Browns defense will at least keep them.
Saints will be really bad this year.
No, man.
That one I could see.
I think
And
it's
Colts have a
Saints,
chance
Colts.
to be pretty bad.
I think Saints and Colts are your 2
And
bottom
Browns.
dwellers.
And
Yeah,
Browns.
I think the
Who's
Browns.
starting at quarterback for the Browns?
No, I
I
know.
think Shador, but
And I think the Browns defense at least keeps their head from being the second, the 2 wins in a season.
I think now. I know he constantly keeps them above 500. I can see where Pittsburgh's just bad. Where finally this doesn't work, where you don't have a quarterback, and then Tomlin just can't get this team over the
And they've
hump
got
again.
Rodgers. I think last year they won 10 games with that.
And also Tomlin, I never doubt, is going to go below 8 wins.
I think at some point he's just gonna it's
I
just gonna
said
hit
that
the
last
fan.
year, and then they did what they did.
I keep saying it until I finally get it right.
I think the
doesn't work.
Browns and the Saints will get Lenore Sellers and Arch Manning in one way or the other. So I'll say not believing this.
Yeah, I'll say
those will be
believe
the
it.
2 teams.
I'll say believe it because if the Colts are in the bottom 2, which I think they will be, they're going to make sure they get Manning.
Yeah, I would believe it too. They are a PR team, and I could totally see them making that kind of a move.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Coming up next, what does the perfect offseason look like for the Blues? JR put his together. We'll hear what Alex has to say about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals currently in action of Game 1 of their doubleheader day against the White Sox. They lead 1-0 going to the bottom of the second inning. We'll keep you updated on the Cardinals score throughout the day today here on 101 ESPN. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, Game 6 of the NBA Finals as the Thunder looks to close out the Pacers. While pregame coverage starting at 6:30 with tip-off at 7:30. This portion of our update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So, Cardinals update real quick for you in the second. Nootbaar reached on an infield single. Walker was up at the plate. He goes down 0-2. He battles back. He's a 3-2 count. May throw a fastball right over the middle of the plate. Exactly what he's looking for. This is what they've been working on with him with. It was a curveball that was a ball, a slider that he fouled off, a fastball that is a ball, a curveball that is a ball, and then he come back, fastball right down the middle. And what does Walker do? He watches it go right down Broadway, and unfortunately, the hit and run appeared to be on. Nootbaar ends up getting caught at second, so now you've got no on, 2 outs for Scott, who grounds out softly to the pitcher. So that's the end of the
worse, striking out while looking at a fastball, or not being able to make contact on 3 straight fastballs and swinging and missing?
The Gorman one was more frustrating. This one, though, was like, man, that is exactly what you've been battling to do. You got to the place that you want to be. Right, you were down 0-2, strike swinging on both of those, slider, curveball, yikes. And then you battle back, you get into the count, you're like, all right, I've 3-2 here, I just got to protect, especially with a hit and run on. I just got to protect. Oh, here comes the fastball, right down the middle, this is my pitch, and you don't even offer at it. That's what's frustrating.
Walker looked like what a Windows 97 computer looked like when you're trying to download too much stuff on it. It's like,
with LimeWire on it. T-Bone has no idea.
Mine was Morpheus.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I was a LimeWire guy.
I was a Morpheus guy, and I crashed my mom's computer way too many times.
Yep. I didn't know the downfall of
Man, you guys are
downloading music.
I didn't either. But you know what? I got those burned CDs, damn it.
That's right. You used to make some mixtapes. Like you make
handed
a
out to the
mixtape for your
ladies?
girlfriend.
Oh, man.
I was thinking of you last night. Check this one out.
Yeah, I had you on my mind when I was putting this together.
Oh, me and Alex had a different childhood.
And you have Sir Mix-a-Lot, Baby Got Back on it. Like, oh, that wasn't supposed to be on there.
All right, so Alex, over on The Athletic, JR put together his piece yesterday. We're not going to have a whole lot of time to talk about this,
cool.
so hopefully you guys can do a little bit longer tomorrow. He talks about his perfect offseason for the St. Louis Blues. Tomorrow, I am curious to hear yours. Yep. But for right now, JR's perfect offseason, draft Nesbitt at 19. I know nothing about the individual, but sounds great.
Ferrario 5 T-Bone on the 5 best draft picks at 19.
We're not doing that tomorrow.
Beyond that, re-sign Holloway and Broberg long-term, give Fowler a 3-year extension, trade Nick Leddy, and one move in free agency, sign Sam Bennett. Alex, does that sound like the perfect offseason in your mind?
It's close to it. I agree with the Holloway and Broberg extension. I agree with the re-signing Radek Faksa. I don't agree with trading away Nick Leddy because looking at their team, unless you're acquiring another defenseman, your 6th defenseman would be Parayko, Fowler, Broberg, Falk, Tucker, Kessel. Are you okay with those 6? And your 7th defenseman is either Corey Schooneman or Leo Loof.
You'd probably have to sign somebody.
Yeah, and
could you just re-sign Suter?
You could, but he's playing as the 6th, and then Kessel is your 7th, which I'm fine with. But
I think that's ideal.
At what point do you get concerned about the age?
I'd like to get a little younger. I think,
or I'd like a little bit.
Okay.
I'd like 41.
I'd like some certainty. Certainty. That's the word I'm looking for in terms of like you're going to be there for me. Not that Suter wasn't, but at some point that dam's going to break. Would I like to trade Leddy? Sure. Can I go get somebody less than $4 million who can be a 6 or 7 defenseman? That's the part that I'm uncertain of. So if there's another guy out there, which maybe I'll have that tomorrow, sneak peek for you. The one I disagree with also is the Bennett. I don't think that's the best offseason for you. I think you are overpaying because we're talking $9+ million for this guy, and you are going, not you, Blues fans are going to see that deal, watch him play the first season, and say, you're paying this guy $9 million?
So that's why you have to move Leddy, though. if you're going to spend $9 million on Sam Bennett to make the cap work and to be able to finish out your roster and to give the money that you would hopefully have to give in this scenario to Joel Hofer, maybe bring back a guy like Radek Faksa, you probably have to make another move for the money side of things, and that's where you get rid of Nick Leddy. So I understand totally your pushback against it, but that's, I would imagine, the explanation as to why. Man, I go back and forth on Bennett. If they sign Bennett, I will be thrilled, and I'll celebrate it like nobody else, but it makes me really queasy.
I don't even know if I'd celebrate it anymore.
Really?
I think I would look at this as, man, you just paid north of $9 million for a guy that's going to be a 50-point player for you.
Yeah, but do you think this team is a playoff team?
Yes.
If Sam Bennett is on it, like they're a playoff team.
Do I think Bennett is producing in the playoffs the way with the Blues that he did with Florida? Absolutely not.
Okay.
The way you score goals if you're Bennett is when you get pucks on net.
I don't think he scores 15. He had 12 the previous 2 years combined.
I just don't know if he's as effective as of a player unless he's on a line with guys that just primarily are great at getting pucks on net. And that's where he comes into play here.
I think your lineup is so deep if you have Sam Bennett here. I mean, you have Braden Shen as a third-line center. He is better than most other third-line centers in the NHL. And if you're telling me my third line is Shin...
I don't know if Bennett's as good to be a second-line center for you in the NHL, though.
Okay, sure. So my third line center, I mean,
is Bennett.
Bennett
I get what you're saying.
Bennett was just a second line center on the team that I think is maybe the best of the last 20 years. So it's hard for me to say he's not a second line center.
With Matthew Tkachuk, and you don't have Matthew Tkachuk.
So in this scenario, let's put him on the third line for the Blues.
I still think your team is lacking. You're paying $9 million for a third line center.
That's why I think he's a second line center. But in the scenario that you presented, if he's on the third line, I think that's pretty freaking good, dude. Bennett or Shin with Bolduc and Neighbors.
Yeah.
It's a really good third line.
Dude, the sticker shock it's real for me right now this offseason. And I don't think this team is in a position to start throwing out $9+ million to players unless they're 70, 80-point players.
Are we overestimating, though, what that's going to be against the new cap?
Maybe.
I think that's part of the conversation that's happening right now.
I think I would much rather take a path to where I give up assets to go acquire something that's making less, that fills the void for me for 2 to 3 years, and wait to see if Dvorsky is the guy I hope he is.
So the cap last year was 89?
6, was it?
Okay.
I thought it was 86.
So the reason I'm asking this, the $9 million 3 years from now will basically be the equivalent of a little less than $8 million last year. Can he be that kind of player?
I don't
think. Can he be in current modern day NHL? Is he an $8 million player?
No, because that's Robert Thomas, in my opinion.
Okay. I think Thomas is more in the modern day $10 million player. You have him signed for 8, but I think he's the equivalent of a $10 million player.
Sure.
And that's,
I mean, if I look around at like $8 million players, they're consistently better than 50-point players. And I'm not going to pay a guy that's just a playoff producer, because I don't know what you look like in the playoffs on a team that doesn't have Matthew Tkachuk and all of these guys that are helping getting pucks on net.
I agree this wouldn't be my perfect offseason. I think this would be a pretty damn good one. And I think I would be really excited about the Blues going into next year, and I would put them into contender status. Not cup contender necessarily, but they have the chance to be that. Sam Bennett opens up a lot of opportunities for you in the playoffs. I'm curious to see what your perfect offseason looks like.
For 12 o'clock tomorrow.
Next time, Bennett, you better open the show the next day. This is a B offseason. I'm holding you for the word. Yeah. I'm writing it down so we got the clip.
Again, unless we're talking like this guy's going to come here for $7.5 million, it's going to be hard for me to celebrate it, which he's not.
It feels very Cardinals-y, by the way.
What do you mean?
Signing Sam Bennett coming off of his past offseason would be very similar to like Dexter Fowler.
Oh, I knew that was
the Cardinals. More money than you want, more years than you want, but my God, did you just watch him in 2016? That was so good.
Starvin Marvin on our graveyard chat said, Alex won't add or pay anyone. Oh, I will. I've got my perfect offseason for you tomorrow.
You that tomorrow. The fast lane's coming up at 2 o'clock. We'll put a bow on this thing with the rewind next here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. I'm taking a vacation for the next few days. I'll be out of here. I know everybody is celebrating. Woohoo! Yeah!
Slow clap.
Get him out of here!
Let
Ferrario and friends!
Let T-Bone and Alex talk.
So if that's what your jam is, they'll have the show tomorrow from 11 to 2. Yeah.
Thing you do.
I think the kids might be saying that nowadays.
That's what your jam is.
Mike McKenna will join you.
Lit.
Brad Thompson, I think, will be on. I think Mo's not going to join us this week.
Nah, I'll reach out to him when I get home.
We will have a Redbird report, though. That's coming up later on this afternoon.
In the midst of a doubleheader?
Perfect timing by us.
You're going to wait till after the doubleheader, right?
Cardinals doubleheader today, so we'll be able to react to exactly none of it. It'll be great. So if you want to hear any of the Cardinals conversation, you can check that out after it's posted, probably around 4 or 5 o'clock.
I'm going to tune in because you guys are going to break down McGreevy.
YouTube.com/101ESPN STL.
What a BK over there.
Huh?
So what a sell job over there.
It'll be great. I can't wait.
Can't wait to hear your guys' thoughts on McGreevy.
A lot of big picture runway conversations. Be a new
probably
topic.
get heated.
Who's going to yell first? Tune in to find out.
One quick thought that we didn't get to today that we can hear. Perfect timing for a doubleheader in all seriousness. McGreevy just right inserted into the rotation, get to do the 6-man without having to call him up, which means that once he goes back down, he has to be down for 15 days. They have run into this issue where we have too many players for not enough spots. The best way to handle this doubleheader, because we got to get guys off their feet. Perfect day to be able to have this.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you get this start from McGreevy, which could be a confidence booster, and then you just have him fresh with the team ready to go for the Cubs series. So, yeah, this is the absolute perfect situation for the Cardinals.
Yeah, you couldn't ask for a better time
T-Bone's
for a
watching the
doubleheader.
game. Is it called
I mean, you
T-Bone
guys
and
know what I
break it
Ferrario
down.
or Ferrario and T-Bone tomorrow?
Ferrario and friends.
Oh, now that T-Bone and
It's
Ferrario.
Ferrario and friends, but it's got a T-bone steak for the eye.
Oh, I like it.
Do you? Come on.
I do, actually.
But
I
you
think
know
that's
what?
pretty creative.
Ferrario and friends will be the same font size, unlike BK and Ferrario, where it's just BK.
Ferrario also happens to be
Just
here.
trash.
I'll talk to you guys on Monday at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane has you guys taken care of. Next, for Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. They'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Fast Lane here on 101 ESPN.